Chapter 1382. Xuanhuan, you and I are both sensible people. Why are we going around in circles and wasting each other's time? The other party laughed, but there was a pressure that couldn't be ignored. You don't really think that you can perfectly hide that thing and no one will notice it, do you? Chu Luiyue didn't say anything. She was sure that the other party was also here for the water droplet. She just didn't know who the other party was. Before coming, she had suspected that the other party was the person who had been lodging in xuanhuan's body. However, when the other party spoke, she knew that wasn't the case. Indeed, you used the cicada's shell-shedding technique very well. However, you forgot that as long as that thing is still with you, it will be impossible for no one to notice it. In the end, it was all for nothing. Chu Luiyue was suddenly stunned. Cicada's shell-shedding technique? What did that mean? Could it be that he was talking about her rebirth? However, she was clearly killed by someone back then. Suddenly, something flashed through her mind. She turned her head abruptly and looked at Mu Qinghe, who was beside her. Mu Qinghe was kneeling on the ground with his head lowered. She couldn't see his expression clearly. Only his tightly clenched hands showed that he wasn't as calm as he looked. Countless scenes flashed before her eyes. Back then her death, what exactly was? Whoosh! A blood-red whip suddenly flew out of the bronze mirror and went straight for Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue immediately retreated. However, she was fast, but the blood-red whip was even faster. In the blink of an eye, it had already flown in front of Chu Luiyue's face. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and red flames set up a barrier in front of her. Sizzle. An unpleasant smell spread out and was almost nauseating. The blood-red whip seemed to have touched something terrifying and quickly melted. Crimson gold celestial phoenix? The voice in the bronze mirror finally changed its tone and was full of shock and disbelief. Then the person sneered. I didn't expect that after not seeing you for so long, your luck is still as good as before even though your strength has dissipated. There was too much information in his words. Chu Luiyue dealt with it while thinking about it in his heart. This guy. She had actually seen it before? And from the looks of it, he had known for a long time that the water droplet was in her body. Bah! Another blood whip lashed out. This time, the power contained in it was clearly much stronger than before. A hole appeared in Chu Luiyue's barrier. The blood whip was extremely nimble and cunning, and it quickly spread out from within. He viciously struck at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue was alarmed. He was definitely stronger than the exalted gods. If she were to be hit by this attack, she would probably lose half of her life. In an instant, Chu Luiyue's body flashed with a golden light. At the same time, a black shield suddenly appeared on her left hand. Boom! The blood-red whip viciously struck the black shield. Chu Luiyue's chi and blood surged, and she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. A terrifying power wrapped around her body, and she flew out uncontrollably. Bang! She crashed heavily into the wall behind her and then fell to the ground. Her back almost split open. Intense pain engulfed her entire body. Her face instantly turned pale. Mu Qinghe knelt on the ground, her head bowed even lower, and her hands clenched even tighter. What a pity. That thing has already recognized you as its master. We'll take some effort to get it out. As he spoke, the blood whip had already transformed into a long knife. It stabbed straight at Chu Luiyue's lower abdomen. Suddenly, the void in front of Chu Luiyue rippled. The blood-red long knife was silently blocked just like that. Chu Luiyue was stunned. She looked up and saw a tall figure walking out of it. He was wearing a black brocade robe today, and his whole body was emitting a shocking cold aura. His every movement was oppressive and noble, but also arrogant and indifferent. What was even more shocking was that the hem of his robe was already stained with blood. As he walked, there were even drops of blood dripping down. It seemed that he had just rushed over from a fierce battle. The thick stench of blood made it hard for people to breathe. However, Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly calmed down. It was as if with this person around, he could shelter her from all the wind and rain, and she would be worry-free. He raised his hand and clenched it in the air. Bang! That extremely ferocious blood-red long saber actually shattered into pieces just like that, and then it completely dissipated into nothingness. Rongxiu? The man in the bronze mirror also seemed to be very shocked. What are you doing here? Rongxiu chuckled. She's here, so it's not strange that I'm here. But it seems that I've disappointed you? The other party was silent for a moment and then he sneered. You're more difficult to deal with than before. It's your people who are too weak. Rongxiu said lightly as if the clouds and the wind were blowing. The other party seemed to be choked and unable to speak. Chu Luiyue was about to speak, but suddenly felt a wave of fluctuation in her dantian. Crack. A faint cracking sound was clearly transmitted into his ears. It was that the black pyramid had cracked open again. There seemed to be something inside that was ready to rush out. Rongxiao suddenly looked back. Chu Luiyue looked up in shock. The two of them looked at each other. For a moment, endless thoughts and longings surged in her heart. They had not seen each other for a while, but Chu Luiyue felt that it had been too long. She opened her mouth, and her voice was so weak that it seemed to dissipate with the wind at any time. Rongxiao. As soon as her voice fell, countless images flooded into her mind. She closed her eyes and fell to the ground. Rongxiao's sword-like eyebrows furrowed. His figure flashed, and he quickly rushed over and took her into his arms. Digression. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1383. Smack. Several blood whips came from behind him. Like sharp claws and teeth, they surrounded Rongxiao completely. Rongxiao held her tightly in his arms and suddenly turned around. A murderous intent flashed in his cold and dark eyes. Vaguely, there seemed to be golden flames burning. Boom. A barrier formed by golden flames appeared in front of him. It blocked all the blood whips. The two forces collided fiercely. Rongxiao's shoulders sank and his feet sank half an inch into the ground. Rongxiao, leave her here and I'll let you go today. A gloomy and cold voice was heard. It was like a poisonous snake coiling around one's heart, making one shudder. Rongxiao's thin lips curled slightly, but his smile was very cold. After so many years, it seems like you haven't changed your bad habit of daydreaming. Rongxiao. This sentence obviously provoked the other party, and he immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. In that case, don't blame me for being rude. As soon as he finished speaking, the blood on the bronze mirror surged. A strong smell of blood spread from it. Immediately, a translucent blood-colored figure suddenly condensed in mid-air. It was a middle-aged man with blank eyes and a stiff and lifeless expression, like a puppet. He quickly flew toward Rongxiao. Then a second figure appeared one after another. He attacked from another direction and surrounded Rongxiao. Rongxiao narrowed his eyes slightly. These two people were actually god venerables who were even more powerful than high gods. You're willing to go all out? Rongxiao raised his eyebrows slightly, and the golden flames in his eyes burned even more fiercely. This kind of special puppet without a physical body or divine body was created by a real cultivator using a secret technique. Once it was summoned, it could only experience one battle. After that, it would die. However, this was not without its benefits. These special puppets could often use all their strength in battle. They could use all their strength at once. This was also one of the reasons why they were so difficult to deal with. As long as we can keep her here, this little loss is nothing. The other party chuckled. She managed to escape in the past, but this time, it won't be so easy. Rongxiao looked down at the person in his arms. Chu Luiyue seemed to have completely fainted. His eyes were tightly shut and his face was pale. Her thick and long eyelashes trembled slightly, as if she was trapped in a terrifying nightmare. Rongxiao's heart felt like it was being squeezed by something. He hugged her even tighter, carefully lifting her head and burying it in his chest. After making sure that she wouldn't suddenly wake up, he looked up. Let's end this quickly, he said indifferently. If Chu Luiyue could wake up now, he would be able to see that the current Rongxiao was very different from what he had seen in the past. Whether he can come back or not is another matter. By the way, speaking of this, do you know the identity of the group of people who took him away before? Everyone shook their heads, indicating that they did not know. Jianghu sneered. I don't know their origins, but I can see that the old man in the lead is a real god. Don't forget, the one who wants to see Chu Yu is his master. What kind of person would the master of a god expert be? Just thinking about it sent chills down one's spine. Whoever wants to wait, just wait. Waiting for Chu Yu to come back might not be as promising as waiting for him to break through to the god realm. These words calmed many people down. But this was still a dead end. They couldn't open the barrier even if they worked together, and it was also uncertain whether Chu Yu could come back. Were they going to stay here forever? Jianghu frowned and looked at the door. What was inside? On the other side, Elder Hua Feng and the others had already left. It was snowing heavily again. The cold wind whistled and every step consumed more energy. Everyone was silent as they walked forward. After an unknown period of time, Elder Hua Feng looked at the green jade token in his hand and finally heaved a sigh of relief. They're right in front. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1384. Hearing this voice, everyone came back to their senses. Their spirits were much higher as they raised their heads to look. However, the snow in front of them seemed to be no different from other places. Elder Huafeng quickly realized this, and the smile on his face froze for a moment. He glanced down again. The light spot on the green jade token was indeed not far ahead. There shouldn't be a mistake this time. If Elder Bo Yen and the others are really in front, they should be able to sense our arrival, right? But why isn't anyone coming out? Sure, and the others came with him. Although their auras were still weak, they had recovered a lot. You guys wait here first, I'll go take a look. With that, Elder Huafeng took the lead and walked forward. 2 other elders followed after him. Elder Huafeng wanted to refuse, but in the end he chose to go with them. After walking for a distance, the 3 of them stood still and looked at a large open space in front of them in shock. That's right, it was an open space. In this place the snow had melted, and there was not a single snowflake on the black ground. Even the snow that was falling from the sky seemed to have deliberately avoided this place and landed on the side. It was as if there was an invisible enchantment that surrounded this place. Bo Yen should be here. Why isn't there anyone? Elder Huafeng frowned and muttered in a low voice. Could it be that it's the same as before? No. Suddenly a thought flashed through his mind. They're below. The other 2 elders were originally confused, but when they heard this they were shocked. What? Elder Huafeng stared at the empty ground. In the dark, he could vaguely sense a trace of origin power surging. Elder, what's wrong? The people behind saw them standing there without moving for a long time and were afraid that something had happened, so they hurriedly rushed over. When they saw the scene in front of them, they all fell silent. This? Shiru looked at Elder Huafeng with uncertainty. Elder Bo Yen and the others are really here? Elder Huafeng took a deep breath. I'm afraid they're below. Shiru's pupils constricted. It can't be? What's going on down there? Huafeng should be right. Elder Danqing, who had been silent the entire time, suddenly spoke. Previously, when we were in trouble, those people suddenly rushed out from underground. Rumble. The ground suddenly shook violently. Then, on the originally empty ground, countless streams of light interweaved. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a huge Xian formation. Several figures flew out from within. It was heading straight for Elder Huafeng and the others. These people were the same as those who had appeared before. They were all wearing black robes and their faces were also covered with black veils. It was impossible to see their original appearances. Trespassers of the dungeon, die. Elder Huafeng's heart sank. It seemed like they had found the other party's territory. But at the same time this also confirmed one thing. Bo Yen and the rest were indeed imprisoned below. Kill? Elder Huafeng waved his hands and a huge Xian formation quickly appeared. The other elders immediately made their moves too. In fact, there weren't many of these black-clothed men. There were only 6 of them. Compared to the dozens of people from Lingxiao College and the Meteor Sect, they didn't have the advantage. However, the key was that Elder Huafeng and the others had experienced a long journey and didn't have much strength left. Not to mention many of them were injured during the journey. On the other hand, although the other party had fewer people, they were all very strong and powerful. Under such circumstances, both sides quickly fell into a stalemate. However, Elder Huafeng and the others knew very well that this couldn't go on. The longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. Just as everyone was gradually falling into a disadvantage, a powerful and loud roar suddenly came from the sky. Brr. This voice contained an extremely powerful aura and immediately attracted everyone's attention. Everyone raised their heads to look. He saw a snow-white figure breaking through the clouds and fog. In the blink of an eye, it had already rushed from the horizon to the front. It was a white lion. Its fur was as white as snow, and its ice-blue eyes were like the best sapphires, cold and disdainful. It was domineering. Its body was wrapped in a shocking coldness. Wherever it passed, it left a long ice bridge in midair. When Elder Huafeng and the others saw this, they were both surprised and delighted. Its little snowflake. Snowy's originally fierce expression almost collapsed. With a slip of his feet, he flew straight toward those black-clothed men. Fortunately, its psychological quality was much stronger than before. It quickly adjusted its mentality and directly charged into the group of black-clothed men. The combat strength of a magical beast was much stronger than that of a human of the same level. Not to mention Snowy, who had recently strengthened its cultivation. It sent one of them flying with a slap of its paw. With a swing of its head, it knocked the other one away. The sound of bones shattering was particularly pleasant at this moment. The situation on the battlefield instantly changed. Shiru, heaved a sigh of relief and couldn't help but smile. It seems that Xiao is here. The others obviously realized this as well, and their expressions became much more relaxed. Elder Huafeng glanced at the two elders beside him. You guys watch over here first. I'll go and break that Shen formation. Okay. Underground. A fierce battle. Golden and black flames flew out and formed an illusion in front of Xiao. That illusion was exactly the same as Xiao. Two divine bodies? The sudden appearance of the two divine bodies obviously shocked the man in the bronze mirror. In the world, he had never seen anyone who could cultivate two divine bodies at the same time. How did Xiao do it? Before he could figure it out, those illusions had already started fighting. Since you've used your divine bodies, I'd like to see if you can stop me with your own body. As he spoke, a few blood whips flew out and headed straight for Xiao. Without the protection of his divine body, Xiao's body was extremely weak. As long as he hit, pa, a huge reddish gold figure blocked in front of Xiao. It was Dumpling. She spread her wings and occupied almost half of the space here. Those blood whips were directly shattered by her wings. Boom. Reddish gold flames spread out. The entire space instantly turned into a sea of fire. The stairs began to collapse. Mu Qinghe was still kneeling on the ground. When the flames burned over, the chains on his hands and feet instantly turned red. The scalding heat burned his skin and flesh at his wrists and ankles, instantly scorching them. Terrifying pain instantly engulfed his entire body. At this moment, Xiao glanced over. His finger moved slightly and a golden line flew out. Mu Qinghe looked down and saw an extremely faint golden light flash in front of him. As long as he took a step forward, he would be able to cut the chains. He closed his eyes. Because of the pain, the veins on his forehead were bulging. Then he took a step back and dodged. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1385. Mu Qinghe fell to the ground. At this moment he was only an inch away from the golden line. But he did not move. The intense pain made him curl up his body unconsciously. Waves of burnt smell came from his body. Especially his wrists and ankles, they were charred black, and his flesh was twisted and distorted under the high temperature. There was not a single trace of blood on his face, as pale as a ghost. Blood kept flowing out of the corner of his mouth. His body was burning hot, but he also felt that his body was getting colder inch by inch. Along with his skin, muscles, blood, bones, it was like falling into an abyss. His consciousness was also gradually blurring. In his blank mind, there was only a familiar, smiling face left. At that time she was still young, but she had already shown her imposing aura. Even when walking on the crowded street, she was still the most eye-catching one. Anyone who saw her would know that she must have an extraordinary identity. In comparison, he who was dirty and skinny was as lowly as mud. When she walked over for the first time, he even had the thought of running away. However, a humble desire surged in the deepest part of his heart, and in the end he chose to stay where he was. A long time later, he learned that there was a word that could be used to describe the situation at that time. The difference was like heaven and earth. Then come with me? She tilted her head and said with a smile. At that time he knew that this sentence had decided his life. Mu Qinghe curled up, her head buried in her arms. It seemed that this was the only way to be safe. His lips moved, but he felt that there were flames spreading on his tongue. Your Highness, he murmured, and his weak voice dissipated between his lips. The surrounding flames quickly surged and completely swallowed his body. A faint light flashed in Xiao's eyes, and he immediately withdrew the golden line. He glanced at the person in his arms. The surrounding heat waves were rolling, but she still showed no signs of waking up. Xiao hugged her tightly, turned around, and quickly headed for the exit. The stairs had already collapsed, but this was not a problem for him. Behind him, the phantoms were still fighting fiercely. The blood whips had long been burned to ashes in the fierce flames. Xiao struck out with his palm. The seal on top of his head was opened. A ray of sunlight shone in. He turned around to take a look, and then his figure flashed and vanished on the spot. Xiao. A roar filled with anger and unwillingness reverberated through the underground. Xiao emerged from the ground and raised his wrist. Two streaks of golden and black flames rushed out and returned to his body. Tuanzi also flew out after her. The inside of the cave was pitch black, and one could vaguely see the blazing flames. Xiao raised his hand. An incomparably complicated Shen formation instantly flew out and directly sealed the entrance of the cave. The totem of the Yuntian Tower was faintly discernible. Very quickly, the sinister voice gradually dissipated. Rong Xiu closed his eyes. The other party did not dare to come out. At most, this was the extent of the commotion. Rong Xiu, the person in his arms called out his name in a low voice. Rong Xiu immediately looked down, but found that she had not woken up. She was just calling out to him unconsciously. Rong Xiu brushed away the loose hair on her face, gently held her face and planted a kiss between her eyebrows. Cherish and cherish. Chu Liyue's slightly furrowed brows relaxed. Rong Xiu carried her horizontally, and just as he was about to walk forward, his chest suddenly shook. A streak of dark red blood flowed from the corner of Rong Xiu's lips. Digression. Yesterday I went out for an entire day. It's hard to explain in words. I'm so tired that I'm paralyzed. Continue at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. The remaining 3 were also injured and their combat strength had greatly decreased. In addition, the other elders and the others blocked them together. Finally, Elder Huafeng had enough time. He stared at the Xian formation on the ground. It was clearly bone-chilling weather, but he was sweating profusely. His hands were constantly waving as he adjusted the Xian formation. Finally, at a certain moment, the 2 Xian formations were completely compatible. As the subtle fluctuation spread, Elder Huafeng's heart started to beat violently. He took a deep breath and didn't dare to blink. He carefully controlled the Xian formation. Crack. A crack appeared on the Xian formation on the ground. The Xian formation had been broken. This sudden movement caused the black-clothed men to immediately turn around. They were both shocked and furious. However, just when everyone thought that they were going to rush over to stop them, their expressions suddenly changed. Then they quickly ran in a certain direction. Their movements were very sudden, and the elders were unable to stop them in time. Shui raised her head and glanced at them. No one knew what she was thinking, but she did not chase after them. Soon, the figures of the black-clothed men disappeared from everyone's sight. Boom. A loud sound came from the ground. Elder Huafeng couldn't care less about those people and hurriedly retracted his gaze. The Xian formation on the ground was quickly dissipating. At the same time, a crack appeared on the ground. The thick ground spread to both sides. An entrance gradually appeared in front of everyone. When the ground finally stopped moving, Elder Huafeng couldn't help but gasp when he saw the scene in front of him. Even though he had already made sufficient mental preparations, he still couldn't hide his shock when he saw this scene with his own eyes. There was a huge staircase that led downwards. Looking inside, it was pitch black and nothing could be seen clearly. Only the pungent smell of blood gushed out from it. It wasn't hard to imagine what kind of scene would be below. Elder Bo Yen and the others are below? Shirur walked closer, her face filled with worry. You guys stay outside first. We'll go in and take a look. Elder Huafeng suppressed the emotions in his heart and said in a deep voice. Elder Danqing took a step forward. I'll go too. Elder Huafeng nodded. Everyone stood at the side and waited patiently. Elder Danqing walked to the edge of the entrance and suddenly turned around. Jianghu, who was standing behind the crowd, suddenly felt a chill down her spine and subconsciously looked up. He happened to meet Elder Danqing's gaze when he looked at Elder Danqing. Elder Danqing said indifferently. When we find Bo Yen and the others, we should be able to ask them what they have experienced during this period of time. For some reason, Jianghu suddenly shivered. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1387. I hope they're all safe. Elder Huafeng didn't notice the abnormality in Elder Danqing's expression as he walked down. Stepping on the ice-cold steps, his heart actually trembled as well. Suddenly, footsteps came from below. Elder Huafeng's heart tightened, and he immediately became vigilant. He gathered force in his palm and was about to make a move. In the next moment, a familiar voice sounded. Huafeng, it's me. Although this voice was a little weak, Elder Huafeng still recognized the other party's identity. A look of joy appeared on his face as he hurriedly looked down. Bo Yen. Is that you? The footsteps were getting closer and closer. It was obvious that someone was walking up. Soon, an old but familiar face appeared in his line of sight. It was Elder Bo Yen, whom he had not seen for a long time. Elder Huafeng hurriedly took a few steps forward and went over to support him. Bo Yen. How are you? He had known Elder Bo Yen for so many years, but this was the first time he had seen him so weak and haggard. When he got closer, he saw that Bo Yan's body was covered with several injuries. Elder Huafeng's expression changed. Let's not talk about this for now. There are still many people down there. Elder Bo Yin waved his hand and said, "What? Oh good, good." Elder Hua Feng reacted quickly and helped Elder Bo Yin up. Then he turned around and waved at the other elders. "The few of you come with me and bring them up." "Yes." The few of them followed Elder Hua Feng and rushed down. The rest of the people gathered around Elder Bo Yin. Seeing him like this, everyone was shocked and stunned. In the entire Lingxiao College, Elder Bo Yin was definitely one of the strongest people. What kind of trouble did they encounter that even he was reduced to such a state? On the other hand, Elder Danqing heaved a sigh of relief when he saw him like this. Fortunately, he was still alive. "Are the others okay?" Elder Bo Yan's expression was solemn as his lips moved. 7 people died. 3 of them were elders of the academy. When the crowd heard this, they were all stunned. For a moment they didn't know what to say. Elder Danqing was silent for a moment before shaking his head and sighing. "We've done our best. This is already very good. You don't have to blame yourself too much." Based on the situation they had encountered before, plus the fact that they had been imprisoned here for so long, the death of 7 of them was already the best result. Pain flashed across Elder Bo Yan's face. "In the end, I was too rash." He only felt that this was an opportunity for his students to gain experience, but he had neglected the possible risks that existed here. He was responsible for every one of their deaths. Elder Danqing paused. "Jianghu is over there." As he spoke, he even raised his chin in that direction. Everyone looked over with different expressions on their faces. There was a problem. Why didn't Elder Danqing mention anything else but Jianghu? Furthermore, judging from his tone, it didn't sound like anything good. "What?" Elder Bo Yin was evidently taken aback as he turned his gaze and looked over. Sure enough, he saw Jianghu, who was standing at the back of the crowd and trying her best to minimize her presence. Elder Bo Yin frowned and said ambiguously, "You're quite lucky." Jianghu lowered her head, her entire body stiff, and she didn't dare to move. The corners of Elder Danqing's mouth twitched, but there was no smile on his face. "That's right." Elder Bo Yin and the others struggled with all their might, but 7 of them still died. On the other hand, Jianghu escaped alone and actually withstood it. It had to be said that sometimes the heavens were indeed blind. "I've already severed my master-disciple relationship with her. As for how to deal with it in the future, it's up to you," Elder Danqing said. Elder Bo Yin looked at him with a complicated gaze. He originally thought that Elder Danqing would be reluctant. He didn't expect him to be so straightforward. However, it made sense. If anyone was used as a shield by their most trusted and beloved disciple, no matter how much affection they had, it would vanish into thin air. Furthermore, that person chose to betray him without hesitation in order to survive. It would be strange if the person who was betrayed could still be forgiven. "Got it. We'll talk about it when we return to the academy." Elder Bo Yin didn't want to waste any more time and energy on Jianghu. At least for now, the safety of the other elders and students of the academy was more important. Elder Danqing nodded slightly. Knowing that he had already made a decision, he heaved a sigh of relief. He felt a little disappointed, but more like relief. How could Jianghu not understand the meaning of these words? Her legs went weak and she almost knelt on the ground. There seemed to be something buzzing in her mind. What should I do? What should I do? Elder Bo Yin clearly wouldn't let her stay. But Lingxiao College was one of her biggest bargaining chips. If she was chased out, wouldn't she lose all her face in the Divine Ruins world in the future? How could she continue in the future? Jianghu took a deep breath and tried her best to calm herself down. Countless thoughts raced through her mind. I have to solve this problem. I can't be expelled from Lingxiao College. Shui is here too? Elder Bo Yin turned his gaze and saw Shui. This title made Shui's mood much better. It proudly raised its head and flew over. Fortunately, it came in time just now. Otherwise we would really... Elder Danqing sighed. Elder Bo Yin smiled and asked Shui, "Since you're here, your master should be here too, right?" As he asked, he raised his head and looked around. "Where is he now?" Shui pursed its lips. Where else could he be? He must be by her side. Originally, it wanted to follow them, but its master said that there were some problems here and insisted that it come over to help. It was obvious that he didn't want it to see his dear you, or... Seeing Shui's expression, Elder Bo Yin guessed that Rongxiu had other important matters to attend to, so he didn't continue asking. He thought that when the matter was resolved, he should come over to meet them. At this moment, Elder Huafeng and the others had already brought the people from the dungeon up. The students and elders looked a little disheveled, and their bodies were more or less stained with blood. Some of them seemed to be seriously injured, so people quickly came forward to help take care of them. Fortunately, there were so many of them and most of them had survived. If something happened to them, then Lingxiao College would be in big trouble. I didn't expect. Under such circumstances, all of you could still come back safely. Elder Danqing couldn't help but say. At first, he really thought that they, speaking of which, Elder Bo Yen narrowed his eyes as if he was recalling something. Actually, it's a little strange. He paused with a hesitant expression. It seems that someone is secretly helping us. Digression, I think. I have a cold? Tomorrow at 12 o'clock. In addition, the comment section is too exciting. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1388. Elder Hua Feng was a little puzzled. Who is it? Elder Bo Yen shook his head. I don't know, but when we were in danger, it seemed that someone secretly helped us and allowed us to escape. Otherwise, according to their situation at that time, it was impossible for only 7 people to die. But from the beginning to the end, the other party didn't appear, so he couldn't guess. Even you don't know? That's strange. Who would help our Lingxiao College and not leave their name? Elder Hua Feng frowned, but he quickly relaxed and smiled. Forget it. I don't think I can think of anything now. Let's go back first. It's always good that someone can help. If we find out who it is in the future, we'll thank them properly. Yes. Elder Bo Yen nodded. Suddenly he thought of something and asked, By the way, why are you here? Elder Hua Feng and the others looked at each other. As expected, someone did this behind their backs. Bo Yen and the others didn't know at all. Elder Hua Feng handed over a green jade token. Isn't this the one I lost before? Elder Bo Yen took it and said in surprise. We received the news from above, so we came over. But after we came, we realized that it wasn't you who did it. Elder Hua Feng put his hands behind his back and pondered for a moment. Until now, we still don't know who the person behind it is. Wanzheng. As he spoke, he saw Elder Wanzheng walk out from below. Elder Wanzheng raised his head and looked over. He suddenly walked out of the dark dungeon. He was still not used to the light outside, which made him squint his eyes. Seeing that Elder Hua Feng seemed a little nervous, he was a little puzzled. What's wrong? Elder Hua Feng took a deep breath and said apologetically, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not being able to help you look after Chuyu. Elder Wanzheng suddenly came to his senses. What did you say? He came with us at that time. But then a group of black-clothed men suddenly appeared and said that their master wanted to see him, so they took him away. The other party had a venerable god expert. We were helpless and could only watch as Chuyu left with them. Elder Wanzheng's expression changed and he took a few steps forward. Chuyu also came here with you? Elder Huafeng pursed his lips, his throat dry. Although it was Chuyu who took the initiative to request it, in the end, it was still his responsibility. If he had insisted on rejecting her back then, how could he have? Elder Wanzheng's face paled. The man in black, supreme god expert. Weren't those the people who had attacked them before? However, why do they want to see Chuyu? Furthermore, he was the other party's master? Even though there were so many of them here, they hadn't heard anyone mention a single word about their master. Elder Huafeng closed his eyes. We don't know either. This is my fault. I'll take responsibility for everything. Elder Wanzheng raised his palm, indicating that there was no need to speak. He took a deep breath and suppressed the surging emotions in his heart with great difficulty. Where is he now? Elder Wanzheng's voice was cold. He spent a great deal of effort to restrain himself from getting angry, because he knew that this was absolutely not Elder Huafeng's fault. But if something really happened to Chuyu, he didn't know if he could remain so calm. Elder Huafeng clenched his fists tightly, his heart filled with self-blame and guilt. Their whereabouts are mysterious. Of course they still didn't know. Wasn't it easy for a god of venerables to take someone away and hide someone in this boundless snowfield? The surroundings fell into a dead silence. Everyone knew how much Elder Wanzheng valued this disciple of his. Now that something like this had happened, how could he not be worried? I'll go look for him myself. Elder Wanzheng turned around and was about to leave. Elder Bo Yen shook his head. Wanzheng, you don't even know where he is now. Where are you going to look for him? Elder Wanzheng stopped in his tracks and clenched his fists tightly. Was he going to just wait like this? He couldn't do it either. Elder Bo Yen pondered for a moment and said, This place is dangerous. We have to leave with the remaining students as soon as possible. Even if the Heavenly Square Cauldron appears, we won't. The news about the Heavenly Square Cauldron is fake. Elder Huafeng couldn't help but interrupt. Then, under everyone's astonished gazes, Elder Huafeng briefly explained what had happened earlier. So, there's a 99% chance that this news was deliberately released by someone to lure everyone here. If the Heavenly Square Cauldron really appeared, then the Three-Eyed Eagle clan wouldn't use a fake Heavenly Square Cauldron to scare people. Elder Huafeng paused for a moment before he asked with uncertainty. And from the Three-Eyed Eagle's reaction, the Heavenly Square Cauldron already had an owner a long time ago. But I didn't ask for the details. I think Chuyu might know more about it. After a short silence, Elder Bo Yen smiled bitterly. I see. Actually, we already felt that something was wrong before, but we didn't expect it to be so. It seems that everyone has been deceived this time. But I don't know who the mastermind is. Why did he go through so much trouble to lure so many first-rate families here? I can't figure it out. It was really puzzling. I think it's better if we don't continue to participate in this show. Elder Bo Yen thought for a moment and pointed at a few people. Leave a few of you here to search for Chuyu's whereabouts. The rest of you follow the main group back. Elder Bo Yen. A young woman's voice suddenly sounded. Many people looked in the direction of the voice. Luo Shishir? Elder Bo Yen looked at her inquisitively. What do you want to say? It could be seen that Luo Shishir was a little nervous and apprehensive, but after taking a deep breath, she still spoke firmly. Elder, this place is vast and sparsely populated. It's really difficult to find someone here. Why don't I stay and search with you? As she spoke, she glanced at Luo Yenlin beside her. Luo Yenlin raised his eyebrows and felt a little helpless in his heart. However, she was his biological sister after all, so he could only dote on her. He took a step forward. What Shishir said makes sense. Elder, the few of us want to stay and look for Chuyu together. It was always better to have more people. Elder Bo Yen was a little hesitant. But you guys were more or less injured before? In this situation it was better to go back and recuperate as soon as possible. Who knew what would happen if they stayed here? Don't worry about this, we know what to do. Luo Yenlin and the others seemed to be very firm. Elder Bo Yen was in a dilemma. On one hand, he wanted to find Chuyu as soon as possible. On the other hand, he didn't want the other students to be in danger. Right at this moment, Xue Xue, who had been bored to death at the side, suddenly had her eyes lit up and rushed forward. Everyone subconsciously looked over. A tall man in a black brocade robe was walking towards them. In his arms he was hugging someone tightly. Rongxiu. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1389. Elder Bo Yen and the others were both surprised and delighted as they hurriedly stepped forward. When they got closer, they saw that the person in his arms was actually Chuyu. However, Chuyu's eyes were tightly shut and his lips were pale. It seemed that his condition wasn't very good. Rongxiu's clothes were also stained with dark blood. The thick smell of blood made people feel a little uncomfortable. One could imagine what kind of bitter battle the two of them had gone through. Elder Wanzheng was filled with worry. Chuyu she's exhausted and has temporarily fainted. Rongxiu explained calmly. She'll be fine after she goes back and recuperates for a while. Only then did Elder Wanzheng feel relieved. That's good. That's good. However, his eyes were still fixed on Chu Luiyue. It was obvious that he was still afraid that something would really happen to her. Elder Huafeng came back to his senses. Rongxiu, did you specially go to save Chuyu? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone fell silent for a moment. Rongxiu nodded slightly. Many people looked at each other in dismay, their hearts filled with shock. In Lingxiao College, who didn't know that Rongxiu had always taken care of Chuyu? The two of them had a close relationship. But today they finally saw it for themselves. Rongxiu actually risked his life to save Chuyu? Looking at his blood-stained body, it wasn't hard to imagine what had happened before. But he still brought Chuyu back. I'm afraid it's not an ordinary matter anymore, right? Rongxiu had a cold personality. He wouldn't even look at unrelated people and things. But now, he was actually willing to help Chuyu like this. It was really surprising. Did you see those people who took Chuyu away and their master? Elder Huafeng asked anxiously. A faint light flashed in the depths of Rongxiu's eyes. When I arrived, I only met two subordinates, but I didn't see their master. Elder Huafeng was a little disappointed but also a little relieved. That's good too. It's best that he came back safely. In this way it would be difficult for them to find out who the mastermind was. However, the fact that the two of them were able to return safely made them feel even more fortunate. I wonder if Chuyu has seen the other party? As for these questions he could only ask them later. Since everyone is here, let's not stay here any longer. Let's go back first. Elder Bo Yen said. Elder Huafeng suddenly thought of something. Wait? The people around him looked at him. Elder Huafeng hesitated. If we leave just like that, then, what should we do about the place where Chuyu broke through earlier? If he guessed correctly, those people should still be waiting there. I wasn't worried about anything else, I just didn't know if Chuyu had left anything over there. After all, he stayed there for quite a long time. In reality, a few days was not a long time. However, compared to others who were unable to enter, it was indeed special. Every time he thought of the scene where Chuyu was able to enter and exit freely, and the other top experts were still unable to open it even after working together, a strange and absurd feeling would always surge in Elder Huafeng's heart. Rong Xiu's lips curved up slightly. Elder Huafeng, don't worry. Based on her personality, how could she leave such a hidden danger behind? Moreover, that place was already. He paused. We'll just go back. There's nothing to see here. Rong Xiu's tone was always clear and indifferent, but it carried a noble aura that no one could disobey. Only then did Elder Huafeng relax. Since you've already said so, then, shall we leave now? Rong Xiu hugged her even tighter and looked down at her. Yes. They had to go back as soon as possible. Just like that, the hundreds of people from Lingxiao College embarked on their return journey. Fortunately, the journey back was very smooth and they did not encounter any more trouble or danger. As long as they followed the established path back to the teleportation formation, they would be able to leave directly. The road was still covered in thick snow. Most people found it difficult to walk. Therefore, everyone's speed was not considered fast. From time to time, people would turn to look at Rong Xiu. Compared to the hardships of others, Rong Xiu seemed to be very relaxed. Although there were messy and dirty bloodstains on his body, the road was obviously not a problem for him. In fact, he was carrying someone in his arms. Many people sighed in their hearts. The strong were indeed not comparable to ordinary people. After walking for a while, Elder Wanzheng finally couldn't help but ask, Rong Xiu, are you tired? I see that you're injured too. It's quite tiring to carry Chuyu like this. How about I carry him for a while? Rong Xiu's lips curved slightly, but he had no intention of letting go. Thank you, Elder. I'll do it. Elder Wanzheng felt that it was a little strange, but he couldn't tell what was strange, so he could only nod. If you need help, just let me know. Rong Xiu nodded. Although the small episode on their side was quickly covered up, it still attracted the attention of many people. Some of the students behind couldn't help but whisper. Previously, there were rumors that Chuyu and Rong Xiu had a good relationship, but I didn't think much of it. Today I finally saw it. How is this good relationship? He's taking care of him as if he's his own brother. Tiske, even if it's his own brother, he might not be like this, right? Hasn't Rong Xiu always been obsessed with cleanliness and doesn't like to be close to people? Now it seems, it's just different people. I really don't know what kind of luck that Chuyu has to be able to be favored by Rong Xiu so much. I heard that the two of them actually know each other, so their relationship is so good. Think about it, if it wasn't for this, would Chuyu have risked his life to help Rong Xiu block a blow? Rong Xiu wouldn't easily treat someone so well, right? Chuyu's origin is also quite mysterious. I've never heard of his background. Maybe. Everyone was discussing and making all kinds of guesses. Obviously, today's matter had indeed given them a huge shock. I think so. Senior Rong Xiu has been in the academy for several years, right? I've never heard of him taking care of anyone like this. Even when it came to Xuanhuan back then, he had never spoken up for her in public. Look at Chuyu. The difference in treatment is like heaven and earth. That's right. I used to think that he treated everyone like that, but who knew? Hey, Jianghuan always said that she and Senior Rong Xiu were childhood sweethearts, and even said that she was the first candidate for the princess of the Yintian Tower. But today, Senior Rong Xiu didn't even look at her. If there's really something between them, why would Senior Rong Xiu be so indifferent when he saw Jiang Jiwan's injured appearance? I think before it was just Jiang Jiwan's unrequited love. Jiang Jiwan has already broken off her master-disciple relationship with Elder Danqing. I think this time when she goes back, I'm afraid she won't even be able to stay in the academy? A group of people roared with laughter, and some of them turned their heads to admire Jiang Jiwan's expression. Jiang Jiwan's chest and abdomen seemed to be surging with magma, as if it would suddenly erupt in the next moment. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Elder Huafeng knew that Jiang Jiwan suddenly looked for him because it must be something important, so he was a little patient. He wanted to see what else Jiang Jiwan was going to do. Jiang Ji1 pursed her lips. She did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Elder, I want to ask you for a favor. That is, can you help persuade my master to take back his order? Elder Huafeng almost thought that he had heard wrongly. What did you say? Was Jiang Ji1 mistaken? She actually asked him to plead for leniency? Jiang Ji1 clasped her hands together with a sincere expression. Her eyes were already filled with tears. I beg of you. Master refuses to listen to my explanation and doesn't want to talk to me anymore. Only you can help me. Elder Huafeng wanted to laugh. He shook his head. Danqing is your master. He has been doting on you for the past few years. This time he did this because you were in the wrong first. He has always been stubborn. Once he has made up his mind, he will never change it. Even if I persuade him, it will be useless. Although he didn't know what Jiang Ji1 had done from the reaction of Danqing, Bo Yan and the others, it was most likely an unforgivable sin. He didn't like Jiang Ji1 to begin with, so why would he be willing to speak up for her? Jiang Ji1, you have to know that once you make a mistake, you won't have the chance to start over. With that, Elder Huafeng turned around and was about to leave. There was no point in continuing to chat with Jiang Ji1. Because until now, she still didn't repent and tried to use all sorts of methods to continue staying in the academy. This kind of person was unreliable. Elder. Seeing Elder Huafeng's firm attitude, Jiang Ji1 made up her mind. Elder Huafeng turned around and was stunned when he saw Jiang Ji1's gaze. In the eyes of outsiders, she still looked weak and pitiful. However, only Elder Huafeng, who was standing close to her, could see the determination and ruthlessness in her eyes. I chatted with Liang Xiaoxiao just now. She said that the Liang family didn't send anyone this time. Elder Huafeng suddenly realized something. If they know that Liang Xiaokang died here and it's our Lingxiao College's tacit approval, then how will they react? Jiang Ji1 smiled. No matter what, the Liang family is a first-tier family. Unless it's absolutely necessary, the academy shouldn't want to fall out with them, right? Elder Huafeng finally understood Jiang Ji1's intentions. He couldn't help but sneer. Jiang Ji1, do you know what you're doing? Threatening an elder was a serious crime. However, Jiang Ji1 didn't seem to be afraid at all and smiled gently. Do you think I'll still care about this if I'm expelled from the academy? At most, she would fight to the death. Elder Huafeng stared at her for a long time. Danqing is really blind. He actually took you in as his disciple and doted on you for so many years. Jiang Ji1's smile didn't change. Can you help me? Chu Luiyue felt as if he had fallen into a long dream. Countless images flashed through his mind. He had seen them before and never seen them before. He had heard of them before and never heard of them before. The chaotic memories surged out, almost giving her a splitting headache. It hurts? She frowned slightly and said softly. Rong Xiao looked at her, and his heart felt as if it had been rubbed by something. He bent his head slightly and wanted to kiss her, but he stopped just as he was about to do so. I almost forgot that there are these people around. After hesitating for a moment, he gently pressed his forehead against hers. The surroundings suddenly became much quieter. Elder Bo Yan looked at him with a panicked expression, his face full of confusion. Rong Xiao raised his head with a calm expression. She seems to have a fever. Digression, the cold is so uncomfortable. I want to lie down like a corpse. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 1391. Elder Bo Yan's expression became very strange. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with his words, but why did he feel that something was wrong? No matter how concerned he was, his actions and posture. Wasn't it a little too intimate? If a man and a man acted like this, anyone who saw it, Elder Bo Yan felt a little flustered. Rong Xiao only said that he had known Chu Yu for a long time. At that time he only treated the two of them as friends and Rong Xiao treated him as his younger brother. But now, Rong Xiao raised his eyes slightly and glanced over. Elder Bo Yan, do you have the clear breeze pill? Yes. Elder Bo Yan came back to his senses, took out a jade bottle and handed it over. Seeing that Rong Xiao couldn't do anything else, he took out the pill and fed it to Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue's lips were tightly shut, and she couldn't send the pill in no matter what. Rong Xiao lightly patted her shoulder and softly said, "Don't worry. Be good and eat the pill." Chu Luiyue snuggled into his embrace, but in the end she obediently opened her mouth. Elder Bo Yan quickly fed the pill in. The clear breeze pill melted in her mouth, and Chu Luiyue swallowed the pill with her eyes still closed. The entire process was as smooth as flowing water and couldn't be more natural. Elder Bo Yin retracted his hand and watched from the side, becoming more and more frightened. When has Rong Xiu ever been so gentle and kind to anyone? Previously, Rong Xiu insisted on carrying Chuyu back and personally taking care of him. He thought that it was because Chuyu had blocked that attack for him, and he did it out of guilt and compensation. But now, in his impression, Rong Xiu had never been close to women. A ridiculous thought appeared in Elder Bo Yan's mind. The thought made his heart beat wildly. He quickly glanced at Rong Xiu and immediately retracted his gaze. Forget it. It's better not to ask about these things. At the very least, he shouldn't have such a strong tolerance right now. However, in the future, his attitude towards Chuyu would probably have to change. Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly. Of course, he could guess what Elder Bo Yin and the others would think when they saw this scene, but he didn't care. Bo Yin. Painting. At this moment, Elder Hua Feng had finished his conversation with Jiang Jiwan. Bo Yin and Elder Danqing turned to look at him. Their gazes swept past Jiang Jiwan, who was left behind. In fact, they also wanted to know what Hua Feng and Jiang Jiwan talked about. I have something that I need to tell you all. Elder Hua Feng's expression was solemn. This caused the hearts of Elder Bo Yin and the others to sink. What happened? Elder Hua Feng took a deep breath and seemed to be in a difficult position. Jiang Jiwan, who was standing not far away, stopped in her tracks. She looked up with pride and anticipation in her eyes. Very good. As long as Elder Hua Feng was willing to help, everything would be fine. Thinking that she had avoided a calamity, Jiang Jiwan couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. At this moment, Elder Hua Feng suddenly turned around and waved at a certain direction in the crowd. Liang Xiaoxiao, come over here. The smile on Jiang Ziyuan's face that hadn't fully spread out froze. Uneasiness surged in her heart. Why did Elder Hua Feng suddenly call Liang Xiaoxiao over? This had nothing to do with her at all. Liang Xiaoxiao was also a little confused, but she still walked forward with everyone's gazes. She first greeted each of the elders one by one, then asked with a blank expression, "What happened? Elder Hua Feng, are you looking for me?" Elder Hua Feng nodded. "There's something that I need to tell you first." The surroundings quieted down. Jiang Jiwan's heart fell into an abyss. However, everything had already begun to develop in a direction that was out of her control. Your brother Liang Xiaokong brought people here earlier. Elder Hua Feng said very straightforwardly. Liang Xiaoxiao's eyes widened slightly. My third brother is here? Didn't Daddy say that he wouldn't get involved in this matter? Could it be that third brother secretly brought people here? He has always been a little radical. Recently, the other disciples in the family have also performed well. You should be anxious? This does seem like something he would do. Elder Hua Feng nodded slightly. About a few days ago, when we just arrived at the canyon, we happened to meet him. At that time he was being hunted down, and the Liang family members who followed him were all dead. Liang Xiaoxiao's expression suddenly changed. She moved her lips. My brother? Elder Hua Feng paused. I'm sorry. You know Lingxiao College's neutral position. Liang Xiaoxiao's legs went soft and she almost fell. An elder beside her hurriedly supported her. Liang Xiaoxiao only felt a burst of coldness from the depths of her heart. Something surged from the bottom of her eyes, causing her vision to become blurry. She opened her mouth but found that she couldn't say anything. Only gusts of cold wind poured in from between her lips and teeth. It was so cold that her internal organs seemed to curl up. Suddenly she seemed to have thought of something. She suddenly turned around and looked at Jiang Jiwan. Jiang Jiwan's heart skipped a beat, and she looked away guiltily. But, Ziyuan said before. She didn't see my brother and the others? Liang Xiaoxiao gritted her teeth and said. Elder Hua Feng followed her gaze and sighed. Actually, you can't blame her for this. After all, you two have been good friends for many years. She doesn't want you to be sad, ha! Ling Xiaoxiao almost laughed out loud. Afraid that she would be sad? Didn't Jiang Jiwan ask those words on purpose? Why is she pretending to be a good person now? Elder Hua Feng, I wonder if you can tell me who killed my brother? Liang Xiaoxiao clenched her hands and asked word by word. Elder Hua Feng paused. At that time your brother specially asked Jiang Jiwan for help. She stayed on the spot for a long time. She should be the clearest about it. Jiang Jiwan raised her head in shock and panic. Elder Hua Feng. How can you say that? Elder Hua Feng blinked and seemed to be slightly helpless. This is a matter of great importance. You have to tell the truth, right? Jiang Jiwan was at a loss for words. She hurriedly ran over and rushed to Liang Xiaoxiao. Xiao, listen to my explanation. I was, pot. A loud slap sounded. Jiang Jiwan lost her balance and fell to the ground. Half of her face quickly turned red and swollen. However, she was already in a sorry state, so it wasn't particularly obvious when she went up. *TC. Liang Xiao was furious. She wanted to tear Jiang Jiwan apart. Liang Xiaokang didn't enter Lingxiao College, so he wasn't familiar with the elders and the others in the college. Among those people he was most familiar with Jiang Jiwan. Of course, Liang Xiao knew that her third brother had feelings for Jiang Jiwan. However, Jiang Jiwan was proud and refused to agree, so Liang Xiao didn't interfere too much in this matter. However, this didn't mean that she didn't know how much Jiang Jiwan had received from her third brother. In the end, this was how Jiang Jiwan repaid her third brother? Jiang Ziyuan was stunned by the slap. She thought that victory was in her hands, but she didn't expect Elder Hua Feng to be so ruthless and directly reveal everything. Reveal everything to the world. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1392. What should I do now? Jiang Ziyuan desperately tried to think of a solution, but to her despair, she found that she had been pushed into a hopeless situation. Elder Huafeng had taken the initiative to make the first move, so it was inevitable that he would make Liang Xiao believe his words and think that all of this was her fault. However, the real culprits were those people from Lingyun Mountain. Moreover, she was not the only one who stood by and did nothing. Why did Liang Xiao push all the blame onto her? Xiao, you've misunderstood. I had no choice at that time. Jiang Jiwan covered her face as blood slowly seeped out of the corner of her mouth. How could I be a match for those people? Liang Xiao stepped forward and grabbed Jiang Jiwan's collar, her eyes red. Those people? Who are they? It's... Jiang Jiwan was about to say something when she saw Elder Hua Feng looking at her from the corner of her eye. He raised his eyebrows and revealed a faint smile. She suddenly shivered. No. She could not say it. If the words Lingyun Mountain came out of her mouth, then she would definitely suffer from Lingyun Mountain's revenge in the future. Lingyun Mountain was a true first-rate family. Not to mention her, even the entire Jiang family in the immortal water tomb was no match for them. She must not get involved in this big trouble. I don't know. Jiang Jiwan's mouth was filled with a thick sweet taste that made her want to vomit. At that time, they were all in disguise. I didn't recognize them. Bang! Liang Xiao threw Jiang Jiwan to the ground. Although she was not as strong as Jiang Jiwan was already at the end of her rope. She did not even have the strength to fight back and could only be humiliated by the other party. Liang Xiao's chest rose and fell violently, obviously still angry. She pointed at Jiang Jiwan and smiled coldly. Good. Jiang Jiwan, I've seen through you today. From now on, I, Liang Xiao, and the entire Liang family are irreconcilable with you. Jiang Jiwan's heart thumped. What would happen if he was targeted by a first-rate family? She didn't need to use her brain to know. But this matter was clearly led by Elder Huafeng and the others, so what did it have to do with her? At that time, no one present made a move. Suddenly, a white light flashed through Jiang Jiwan's mind. She suddenly understood something. Liang Xiao did it on purpose. Growing up in such a big family and being doted on so much, Liang Xiao was obviously not as stupid as she looked on the surface. In fact, she was very smart. She knew that this matter was related to the academy, but she didn't want to become enemies with the academy. Moreover, the academy was famous in the Divine Ruins world for having a high profile and never getting involved in the affairs of any aristocratic family or clan. It was understandable that they would do this. However, someone had to be held responsible for this matter. Then, she, Jiang Jiwan, had become the scapegoat. In this way she could maintain a stable relationship with the academy and avenge Liang Xiaokang. Why not? Jiang Jiwan wanted to support herself to stand up, but after trying a few times she found that her body was trembling violently. How did things turn out like this? She was clearly the one who had the upper hand before, but now, Elder Huafeng finally spoke again. Xiao, actually you can't blame her entirely for this matter. Although your brother begged her for a long time, you should be able to imagine that she was also injured at that time. How could she take care of your brother? Jiang Jiwan simply wanted to rush up and tear Elder Huafeng's mouth apart. Stop talking. Did he think that her situation wasn't miserable enough? If this continued, how could she survive in the Divine Ruins world? A cold light flashed through Liang Xiao's eyes. Don't worry. Before the matter is investigated clearly, I won't do anything to her. But after the investigation it would be hard to say. Jiang Jiwan's heart was in a mess. What else could she do in this situation? Suddenly she raised her head and looked past the crowd at the tall man in black. Right now he was probably the only one who could help her. Your Highness. Jiang Jiwan used all her strength and shouted loudly as 2 streams of tears flowed down. She didn't know where she got the strength from, but she suddenly stood up and rushed over. Although her footsteps were staggering, her speed wasn't slow. Because it was too sudden, by the time everyone reacted, she had already rushed a distance away. Elder Huafeng's face turned cold. He took a step forward and blocked in front of Jiang Jiwan. He angrily rebuked, Jiang Jiwan, are you crazy? Jiang Jiwan was unable to get past him. She was extremely anxious and her voice became even sharper. Your Highness, say something please. Could it be that you really have the heart to watch all of this happen? The Immortal Water Tomb is one of your 28 divisions. Even if you don't want to give face to the monk, you have to give face to the Buddha, Your Highness. Everyone looked at Rongxiu. Jiang Jiwan's words weren't without reason. The Immortal Water Tomb was one of the strongest and most powerful of the Yuntian Tower's many divisions, and Jiang Jiwan was the apple of Jiang Hetian's eye. If Rongxiu really made up his mind to speak up for her, then everyone still had to give face. Rongxiu first glanced at the person in his arms. A faint mark appeared between her eyebrows, and her eyelashes trembled slightly, as if she was dreaming of something unsettling. Rongxiu held her in his arms, then immediately turned around and looked up slightly. That pair of phoenix eyes was cold and deep, wrapped in an astonishing chill. Jiang Jiwan was swept by this gaze and actually shivered. She opened her mouth, and her sharp and piercing voice suddenly became much weaker. Your Highness, you disturbed her sleep. Rongxiu said coldly. Digression. Tomorrow at 12, mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1393. The surroundings were silent. Jiang Jiwan opened her mouth slightly, her pale lips trembling in disbelief. She wanted to say something but found that her throat was dry and her chest was tight. She couldn't say a word. Her face was burning. Rongxiu's words were even more embarrassing than Liang Xiaoxiao's slap. Disturb Chuyu's sleep? Could it be that her safety was not as important as that person's sleep? Jiang Jiwan didn't ask this question, because she had already seen the answer from Rongxiu's impatient and cold face. Those phoenix eyes looking at her were cold and emotionless, distant and indifferent, without even the slightest bit of friendship. Jiang Jiwan's strength seemed to have been sucked out of her body in an instant, and her whole body went limp on the ground. No one went to help her. The snow on the ground was so cold that it seemed to seep into her bones and blood. It was so cold that she shivered all over. Rongxiu had already retracted his gaze, and continued to walk forward with the person in his arms. Not far in front of them was the transportation portal to return. Her current situation wasn't too good. She had to return to the academy as soon as possible. Seeing that resolute and cold back, Jiang Jiwan's hands clenched tightly. Finally, she couldn't help but raise her head, and unwillingly and resentfully asked, Your Highness, are you really going to abandon the Immortal Water Mausoleum? The Immortal Water Mausoleum was the head of the 28 divisions. It was of great significance to the Yuntian Tower. She didn't believe that Rongxiu would be willing to take this risk for Chuyu. Rongxiu stood still on the transportation portal. His arms moved slightly, and the person in his arms shifted into a more comfortable position. Then he raised his eyes and glanced at Jiang Jiwan. That glance was extremely cold and indifferent. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, containing a hint of a smile. But it seemed to be wrapped in frost, making one's heart feel cold. Before that, it's best that you think about how to tell your father about yourself, Chu Feng said. Jiang Jiwan suddenly widened her eyes. In that instant, something in her heart seemed to collapse. Yes. In the past, she was the apple of her father's eye. She was one of the top figures in the entire mausoleum of immortal water. Even if her father favored her, no one would say anything. But things were different now. She had been abandoned by Elder Danqing and was about to be expelled from Lingxiao College. Not to mention there was also Liang Xiaoxiao's entanglement. Even if his father was willing to bear the responsibility, what about the others? She was no longer the person she used to be, and she no longer had all the privileges she used to have. At that time, why would the entire Immortal Water Mausoleum challenge the Yuntian Tower for her? To be able to force him to cut off their master-disciple relationship. Had that Jiang Jiwan is indeed capable. Luo Shishir nodded. Judging from the reactions of the other elders in the school, Jianghu probably wouldn't be able to stay in Lingxiao College after she returned. A good hand of cards has been played to a pulp. That's all there is to it. Thinking back to the past Jianghu, how glorious and proud she was. But now she was so hated by others. In the future, it would be very difficult for her to have a place in the Divine Ruins world. I really don't know how she got to this point. Although Luo Shishir wasn't very familiar with her, she felt rather emotional when she thought of the great difference between her and before. Why are you thinking so much? Luo Yanlin gently knocked on her forehead. Whether she lives or dies has nothing to do with us. Just take a look. As the outstanding son of the Luo family who was very likely to inherit the position of the head of the family, Luo Yanlin had always been proud. He had never taken someone like Jiang Jiwon seriously. She was just a clown. Luo Shishir responded obediently. She curled her fingers and couldn't help but look in another direction. Even though there were so many people, she could still see Rong Xiao at a glance. He was very tall, and when he stood in a crowd, he would always stand out like a crane among chickens. Not to mention that handsome and devilish face that seemed to have been meticulously carved by the heavens at any time, seemed to gather all the splendor and brilliance, causing everything around him to dim in comparison. This teleportation formation wasn't small, but with so many people standing together, it was still a little crowded. However, there seemed to be an invisible barrier around Rong Xiao, making it difficult for people to get close. Cold, noble, disdainful. It was as if standing closer would be blasphemy. Chuyu was in his arms, and his appearance couldn't be seen clearly. Luo Shishir bit her lip. I wonder how Chuyu is doing now. A better reading experience came from the Love Network. Chapter 1394. Luo Yanlin followed her line of sight and narrowed his eyes slightly. He and Rong Xiao entered the academy around the same time, so they were of the same generation. However, they didn't interact much with each other. Of course, Rong Xiao's personality was like that, and it was the same for others. Other than occasionally going out to train or carry out missions together, they would only meet a few times at the beginning of the month during the assessment. Ever since Rong Xiao was ranked first on the Azure Sky roll, he rarely came out. With Rong Xiao taking care of him personally, nothing will happen to that kid. Luo Yanlin said as he took out a jade bottle and stuffed it into his sister's hand. You're so focused on him that you forgot to take your own medicine? His gaze fell on Luo Shishir meaningfully. Luo Shishir immediately felt guilty and quickly opened the jade bottle, poured out a pill and ate it. No, I just feel that. Senior Rong Xiao and Chuyu have a good relationship. He has never treated anyone like this before, right? The holy son of the Yuntian Tower was known for his decisiveness and ruthlessness. Even in the academy, when he restrained his aura, he still made people feel that there was a distance between them. Luo Yanlin touched his chin. Actually, you can't say that. There was a person in the past and Rong Xiao treated that person like... At this point he suddenly paused. Like what? Luo Shishir's eyes were filled with curiosity. Could it be that there was someone in the world who was better taken care of by Rong Xiao? That was truly unbelievable. Rong Xiao was a natural king, like an iceberg that wouldn't melt for 1,000 years. It was difficult for others to even get close to him, let alone other things. It was hard to imagine that he would treat someone well. Now that he treated Chuyu like this, it was shocking enough. If there was something worse, then, bam. Luo Yanlin knocked on her head again, this time with more force. Luo Shishir hurriedly covered her forehead in pain. Fourth brother, you, little girl, there are some things you can ask, but there are some things you don't know, understand? Luo Yanlin warned with a smile, but his eyes were very serious. Luo Shishir pursed her lips and muttered, got it? Luo Yanlin glanced over and quickly retracted his gaze. Everyone boarded the teleportation array and began their return journey. Everyone was in small groups, whispering to each other. Most of them were talking about the trip to the north of the primordial world. Especially when Elder Huafeng, Elder Bo Yen, and the others gathered together and chatted even more seriously. After all, they still wanted to find out who was behind this. Lingxiao College had suffered a great loss this time, and they would not let it go so easily. Only Jiang Jiwon was left alone in the corner. No one spoke to her, making her seem very cold and cheerless. However, there were quite a number of people who kept looking at them in private. Most of them were mocking and ridiculing him as if they were watching a good show. Jiang Jiwon lowered her head. She had to use all her strength to restrain the impulse in her heart. She couldn't go on like this. The outcome had already been decided. What awaited her was probably the worst possible outcome. If she still had anyone to rely on... Suddenly her eyes flickered. That's right. How could she forget that there was still that person? The journey back was dull and boring. In addition, everyone was more or less injured, so the atmosphere was gloomy. It was completely different from the excitement they had when they came. The waiting time seemed to have become exceptionally long. After an unknown period of time, a light finally appeared in front of them. Elder Bo Yen called out loudly. "We're about to return to the academy. Everyone get ready to go out." "Yes." Immediately after, several elders made their moves together. The Xian formation at the exit suddenly split open from the middle. Elder Hua Feng and the others rushed out one after another. Rong Xiu looked at the person in his arms. Chu Luiyue was still asleep. However, compared to before, her pale and haggard face had regained a trace of rosy color, and she seemed to be much better. Moreover, the aura on her body was also faintly strengthening. Rong Xiu's hand tightened slightly, and then with a tap of his foot, his figure flew out quickly. "Hua Feng, you're back." The elders who had been waiting around the teleportation formation for a long time were all energized when they saw them. Only the heavens knew how hard they had been waiting during this period of time. But soon they realized that something was wrong. Elder Bo Yen and the others who followed behind him were actually more or less injured. It looked like they had just experienced a great ordeal. "You guys, what happened to you guys?" The elders looked at each other and felt vaguely uneasy. Elder Hua Feng shook his head. "It's a long story. First, send the students back to recuperate. We'll talk about other things later." Seeing his rare serious expression, the elders didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly took action. Some of the students who were lightly injured obeyed and went back. There were also a few who were in more serious condition and were escorted back by the elders. The more they looked, the more shocked they became. Didn't they say that they would only ask Elder Hua Feng and the others to support the Heavenly Square Cauldron? How did it end up like this? Anyone could see that the situation was definitely much worse than they had expected. Rong Xiu? When the tall and slender figure appeared, the faces of the elders were filled with astonishment. When did he go over there? What was even more shocking was that he was carrying someone in his arms. Chuyu? An elder stood close and recognized the person with sharp eyes. Because it was too unbelievable, the tone of his voice changed a little. Rong Xiu nodded lightly at the elders and then walked forward. "I'll take her back to rest." "Ah? Okay." Before anyone could react, Rong Xiu had already left with his people. "Hey Rong Xiu, wait for me." Elder Wanzheng hurriedly followed after him. Their figures quickly disappeared behind the undulating mountain peaks, leaving behind a bewildered expression on everyone's faces. After a long while, someone stammered, What's going on?" Elder Bo Yen laughed bitterly. If only he knew. Moreover, he didn't want to figure it out now. Inside, there would be a lot of problems. Rong Xiu has always known his limits. Don't worry about him. Let's clean up this mess first. Hearing Elder Bo Yan's words, the others didn't ask any more questions and only responded in unison. Yes. Rong Xiu directly brought Chu Luiyue back to his residence. After entering the room, he carefully put her down. Elder Wanzheng hurriedly followed behind them. Rong Xiu, how's Chuyu? Rong Xiu covered her with a blanket and gently rubbed his finger on her soft hand twice before putting her hand under the blanket. This action was extremely subtle, and because his back was facing Elder Wanzheng, the latter didn't notice. When Elder Wanzheng walked over, Rong Xiu straightened his body and placed a hand on Rong Xiu's forehead. The fever seems to have subsided a little, but I don't know when she'll wake up. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1395. Why is there no sign of him waking up after such a long journey? Elder Wanzheng's heart ached and he was worried. The Chuyu he saw was always alive and kicking, cunning and quick-witted. However, the Chuyu now lay quietly and weakly on the bed. He was as fragile as glass that would shatter at the slightest touch. How can this be? What did this child go through? Rong Xiu paused and tucked Chu Luiyue in. Elder Wanzheng, let's talk outside. He would disturb her if he stayed. Elder Wanzheng quickly nodded in agreement. Yes. Let's go outside and let him rest. He deliberately lowered his voice when he said this, as if he was afraid that he would disturb Chu Luiyue. Rong Xiu's thin lips curled up slightly. Please go ahead. Elder Wanzheng was very reluctant. He looked back 3 times with every step. It was only when Rong Xiu said that he had set up a Xian formation that he would know immediately if anything happened inside that Elder Wanzheng was relieved. The two of them walked out and sat down on the stone bench in the courtyard. I know you have a lot of questions. If there's anything you want to ask, just say it. Rong Xiu will tell you everything he knows. After sitting down, Rong Xiu went straight to the point. He was very sincere in front of Elder Wanzheng. If it was someone else, it would have been fine. However, Elder Wanzheng was Chu Liyue's master now. He was one of the people who had the most right to care about her. Elder Wanzheng was indeed full of questions. There were too many things he wanted to ask. However, when he heard Rong Xiu's words, he did not know where to start. After thinking seriously for a while, he sorted out his thoughts and finally asked, "How's Chu Yu's condition now?" He had been in such a hurry that he had forgotten to take Chu Yu's pulse personally. However, Rong Xiu was also a celestial physician. He was also the one who brought Chu Yu back. You should know better. Rong Xiu said, "Don't worry about that. Her body is fine." Although he had suffered some injuries before, he could recover quickly after recuperating for a period of time. He paused slightly. After all, as you know, she just broke through to the 9th stage. At this time, the recovery ability and so on were all very strong. Not to mention her. Hearing this, Elder Wanzheng let out a sigh of relief. He clenched and loosened his hand. Countless complicated emotions flashed through his eyes. In the end, he could only shake his head and sigh. I don't know whether I should be worried about him or happy for him. In just a few days, Chu Yu had broken through from a rank 8 warrior to a rank 9 warrior. He had already heard about it from Elder Huafeng. It was just that he was more worried at that time, so he didn't think too much about it. Now that everyone had returned and Chu Yu's condition seemed to have stabilized, he finally realized how shocking this matter was. Just like this time, those people didn't choose anyone and only took him away. If it wasn't for Rong Xiu, he really didn't know what the result would be. Elder Wanzheng stood up. Everyone has just returned and there are many things to deal with. During this period, it should be more chaotic outside. I'll have to trouble you to take care of Chu Yu. Rong Xiu also stood up and nodded slightly. Don't worry. The entire Lingxiao College was indeed chaotic. More than 300 students and elders had walked on the line of life and death. They had almost been completely wiped out in the primordial north region. This was something that the college had never encountered in hundreds of years. In addition to comforting everyone, Elder Bo Yin and the others had already started to investigate this matter. The main point was the news of the appearance of the heavenly square sacred cauldron. Where did it come from? The person who spread this fake news was basically the mastermind behind this. The atmosphere of the entire college became tense. Everyone was on high alert. Even the air seemed to have frozen. And in this serious and cold atmosphere, something else happened that caused waves in everyone's hearts. Jiang of the Jiang family of the Immortal Water Hill was officially expelled from Lingxiao College. Digression, 6:00 p.m., mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1396. Thanks to Elder Huafeng's enthusiastic help, the Immortal Water Mausoleum received the news immediately. Jiang Hetian rushed to the school as fast as he could. Lingxiao College was in a critical period and was heavily guarded. No one could enter or leave as they pleased. According to Elder Bo Yin, they should have sent Jiang Jiwan out of the school and let the Jiang family pick her up from Fang State City. However, considering that the matter was blown out of proportion and would be bad for the school's reputation, they let her in. Of course, only Jiang Hetian was allowed to enter the school. The rest of the Jiang family who came with him were all kept out of the barrier. Jiang Hetian felt deeply humiliated, but with the matter at hand, he couldn't care less. In a hall in the school. As soon as Jiang Hetian entered, he saw several elders seated. His precious daughter, Jiang Jiwan, was standing alone in the middle of the hall. The atmosphere was stagnant and seemed to be freezing. Jiang Hetian's heart sank. This atmosphere was enough to explain too many things. Jiang Hetian of the Immortal Water Mausoleum greets the elders. He suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and bowed politely as usual. Hearing the voice, Jiang Jiwan trembled and slowly turned around. The father and daughter looked at each other. Jiang Hetian's heart trembled violently, because the current Jiang Jiwan was too haggard and disheveled. Her face, neck and even wrists were clearly marked with scars. Her bright, watery eyes were bloodshot and even a little sluggish. There were dark circles under her eyes, and it was obvious that she didn't sleep well. Xuan. Jiang Hetian's heart ached. He hurried a few steps to Jiang Jiwan's side. What happened to you? Seeing his anxious face, Jiang Jiwan's nose twitched and she couldn't help but cry. Father, I'm sorry. Her reaction made Jiang Hetian even more worried and nervous. He patted her shoulder lightly and whispered a few comforting words. Don't worry, I'll definitely uphold justice for you this time. As he spoke, he took a step forward and cupped his hands at the elders present. Elders, if you want to remove Xuanhuan's name, you should at least give a reason, right? What's going to happen to her in the future? In the message that Lingxiao College had sent to him, they had only mentioned that they would be expelled, but they had not explained the reason. This was what puzzled him the most. He knew that not long ago, Wei Shiping's name had also been removed. However, everyone knew the reason. Even now, Wei Shiping did not have the face to return to the Qinggupa family way. But when it came to them, how could they be so muddle-headed? He had to get an explanation. Elder Huafeng smiled. Patriarch Jiang, it must have been hard for you to come all the way here. Why don't you sit down and talk? Jiang Hetian refused. I won't be sitting. Elders, if you have something to say, just say it. He was so angry that he didn't even want to give her any face. However, Elder Huafeng didn't care about this at all. He nodded and did not continue to persuade him. Patriarch Jiang, to be honest, it's because we want to save some face for you and the immortal water tomb that we didn't announce the reason. If you must know, why don't you ask Jiang Jiwan yourself? Jiang Hetian's heart sank when he heard this. The other party's attitude was so calm. Could it be that Jiang Jiwan really did something wrong? Alright, there's something that you might not know yet. Elder Huafeng reminded him. Before she was expelled, Elder Danqing took the lead in severing his master-disciple relationship with her. These words were undoubtedly adding insult to injury. Jiang Hetian was originally full of anger, but when he heard these words he couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. He looked at Jiang Jiwan suspiciously. Xuan, what's going on? Jiang Jiwan knelt on the ground with a plop. Father. I was just confused for a moment. Please help me beg the elders and master. I don't want to leave the academy. I can't be expelled. Her tearful appearance made Jiang Hetian's remaining half of his heart turn cold. If you don't want to say it, this old man will. Elder Danqing, who had been silent, finally spoke. His gaze slowly swept over Jiang Ziyuan's body. His tone was calm, as if he was just talking about an unimportant matter. At that time, we arrived at the northern border of the primordial world together and were attacked halfway. Jiang Jiwan betrayed us in order to survive alone. Jiang Jiwan's face turned ashen. At that time, all of us planned to split into two groups and escape separately. Jiang Jiwan was the first to be caught by the other party, and then, she told the other party everything. Then, while the other party wasn't paying attention, she ran away alone. With every word that Elder Danqing said, Jiang Jiwan's despair surged up a little more, and in the end she was completely swallowed up. She's quite lucky. After such a torment, she actually managed to survive. However, I heard that it also caused a lot of trouble for Huafeng and the others. Ha! Compared to what you guys did, we're nothing. Elder Huafeng waved his hand as if he didn't care. She just killed a nine-tailed blue crow and almost caused us to die under the claws of the nine-tailed blue crows. This understatement of sarcasm made Jiang Hetian feel as if a fishbone was stuck in his throat, and his face turned green and white. Elder Danqing looked at him and sipped his tea unhurriedly. Now, Patriarch Jiang, do you still want an explanation? Pengmin Mountain. It was as quiet as ever. Even though the outside was turbulent, no one dared to come here to disturb them. Inside the tower, in an empty room, the 7 fan doors floated quietly. A faint glow shone on the black jade floor, pure and holy. Suddenly, a slight fluctuation came from one of the doors. This movement immediately attracted Elder Meng's attention. A deep and old voice sounded in the room with a hint of puzzlement. As time passed, the ripples on the door gradually grew stronger. Even the entire door frame started to tremble slightly. It was as if something was about to rush out. Could it be that the girl is back? Elder Meng's voice was filled with shock and surprise. Other than her, no one else could cause such a commotion. But why wasn't there any news from outside? If that girl was really back, Bo Yen and the others should have come to tell him long ago. Dong. The power inside began to hit the door as if it was trying to break free. As expected, you're still as restless as her. Elder Meng snorted softly. An invisible and majestic force suddenly converged from all directions, enveloping the door within. Being suppressed, the fluctuation on the door gradually decreased. However, after a moment of silence, there was another sound of impact from behind the door. Dong dong. Dong dong. One sound, one after another, was extremely rhythmic. In the calmness there was passion and intensity. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1397. In the end, Jiang Hetian still left Lingxiao College with Jiang Jiwan. The father and daughter came out of the hall and walked to the boundary of the college without saying a word. Elder Huafeng originally planned to send them off, but in the end Jianghu declined. After being humiliated to this extent, he really didn't have the face to face these Lingxiao College elders anymore. The only thing he wanted to do now was to take Jianghu and leave this place as soon as possible. In the middle there were a few students who bumped into this scene, but they just stood there and pointed. They didn't have the slightest intention of coming over to say hello or say goodbye. Those scattered strange gazes and sarcastic mockery were like a nightmare, shrouding the hearts of Xuanhuan and her father, and they couldn't get rid of it. The two elders in charge of guarding the boundary didn't deliberately make things difficult for them. After seeing that it was them, they simply responded and opened the boundary. Jianghu took the lead and stepped out. He couldn't stay in this place for a moment longer. Jianghu stood in place but dilly-dallied. She was somewhat reluctant to part with them. She couldn't help but look back. The towering Donghuang Bell Tower, the wide and clean Qingming Square, and the rolling mountains filled with the force of heaven and earth. At this moment, a figure appeared on the Donghuang Bell Tower. Elder Bo Yen. He waved his long sleeves, and on the black wall of the Donghuang Bell Tower, the Qingyun ranking appeared. Countless names that were emitting a faint glow were shining on it. That was glory and also glory. Many people in the college looked over. Jiang Jiwan saw her name. But in the next moment, those three words quickly dimmed, as if drifting with the wind. Removed in public. This was the greatest humiliation he had ever suffered. Jiang Jiwan staggered and almost fell to the ground. A wave of unwillingness and resentment surged in her heart. Jiang Jiwan's hands couldn't help but clench in her sleeves. She had stayed here for several years. How could she not be reluctant to leave? It was precisely because of her outstanding performance in Lingxiao College that she could be looked up to and envied by everyone. But from today onwards, everything would vanish into thin air. The pride, the glory, the praise. Everything would be reduced to nothing. Originally she should have gotten the best. Jiang Hetien could not help but urge. His voice was a little cold, as if he was forcibly suppressing something. Jiang Jiwan came back to her senses and quickly turned around. He's here. However, just as he took a step forward, he was stopped by another elder. Wait. Jiang Jiwan looked up blankly. The other party stretched out a hand. His face was expressionless and his tone was businesslike. Since you've been expelled from the academy, your pass will also be confiscated. And only when she went to the Yintian Tower would the Liang family have some scruples. Even if they wanted to do something to her, they had to get past this hurdle first. Rong Xiu was unwilling to help her, but it didn't mean that she couldn't rely on the Yintian Tower. Jiang Hitian's expression finally softened a little. This was indeed the best solution at the moment? Are you sure you can stay there and wait for the patriarch to come out? Jiang Jiwan nodded firmly. As long as you go to the honorable elders and plead with them to send me there, it'll be fine. Also, I might be able to investigate Xuanhuan Yu's background. You still want to investigate that? Jiang Hetien disagreed. The people who were sent to investigate the Xuanhuan Yu had never returned. What could Jiang Jiwan find out on her own? In the end, she could only alert the enemy. You should take care of yourself first. Jiang Jiwan was taken aback by her father's reaction, but she still followed his advice. I understand. Jiang Hetien looked at his daughter's submissive expression and felt both heartache and anger. Forget it. Let's go to the Yintian Tower. But if you continue to be like this... He swung his sleeves and turned to leave. Jiang Jiwan suppressed the surging emotions in her heart and quickly followed him. On the other hand, Rong Xiu sent Elder Wanjing away. He stood halfway up the mountain with his hands behind his back. The removal of Jiang Jiwan's name from the Donghuang Clock Tower caused quite a commotion in the academy. Everyone gathered in groups of 3 to 5 talking about something. Rong Xiu's expression did not change. He looked up slightly and looked at the top of the tower. There was a name that had been erased. There was a surging undercurrent inside. Digression. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1398. Lingxiao College began to deal with the follow-up matters. On the other side, many aristocratic families and clans who were still in the northern region of the primitive wilderness finally realized that something was wrong. The huge tomb was surrounded by a crowd of people. It was quiet. Finally, someone couldn't help but stand up. Forget it. If any of you want to continue staying here, you can continue to stay here. I won't keep you company. This sentence instantly broke the precarious balance on the scene. Everyone looked over and couldn't help but feel nervous. Jianghu glanced at him coldly and snorted. What? You can't stand it anymore? Didn't they say that they would open the barrier together? Now you want to quit? Fine. It's up to you. With one less person there would be less competition. The other party didn't show any weakness. Jianghu. Don't be too optimistic. There are so many of us. How long have we been here? Haven't we made any progress? I think ordinary people can't enter this damn place at all. Staying here is just a waste of energy. Jianghu's face became a little ugly, because he knew that the other party was telling the truth. Many people looked at each other. In fact, after such a long time, they had already been nervous, but they were too embarrassed to speak first, as if they were afraid of someone. Now that someone finally spoke first, they immediately relaxed their mental defenses and became active. That's not unreasonable. Even if there are really treasures in here, it's useless if we can't get in. What's more, Chuyu has already gone in to plunder. Who knows what leftovers are left? That's right. We can't wait anymore. We've wasted so much energy and time for nothing. Instead of waiting for an illusory opportunity here, it's better to go back and concentrate on cultivation. More and more people began to loosen up. Jianghu was a little flustered. If they all left, the Golden Wing sect alone would not be able to open the barrier. Of course, even if they worked together, it seemed to be useless. He glanced at the barrier with hatred. By the way, it's been so long. Why hasn't there been any news from the people of Lingxiao College? The sudden sentence made everyone quiet for a moment. Indeed, they had been waiting here for several days, but the people from Lingxiao College had not returned. He didn't know how they were doing now. And Chuyu, who was taken away by the black-clothed man? They have gone back. A cold voice suddenly came from the crowd. Everyone looked over in unison. The one who spoke was the man leading the group from Mount Lingyun. How do you know? There are so many things in the northern region of the primordial wilderness that we haven't figured out yet. How could they just leave like that? Jianghu asked skeptically. Don't tell me you're just trying to fool us? The man put away the things in his hands and stood up. The Liang family had already started investigating Liang Shaokang's death. Those people from Lingxiao College had obviously gone back a long time ago. But fortunately they still kept their word and did not expose the Spirit Charm Mountain. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. It was better to return as soon as possible and make preparations early. The group of people behind him also gathered together. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Our Lingyun Mountain will not participate in this liveliness. Please do as you please. After saying this, the man happily turned around and left with his men. The people who were left behind were stunned. Wasn't this too sudden? The figures of the people from Mount Lingyun quickly disappeared. With one side taking the lead, it was much easier for the rest to leave. Even Lingxiao College has left. Then, is there something wrong with this place? Why don't we leave too? There's really no point in staying here. As they spoke, the various forces began to leave one after another. Jianghu originally wanted to resist for a while longer, but seeing that everyone had left, he felt a little guilty. Therefore, after half a day he tried a few more times and found that he really couldn't do anything to the barrier, so he could only give up. In the end he left with his men. At this point, the surroundings of the tomb finally quieted down again. The wind howled and snow fell from the sky again. The 9 dragon skeletons were motionless in the canyon, as if they had completely died. Only the silver barrier outside the tomb was flickering. It was as if something was about to wake up from its deep sleep. Mount Jianghu. Time passed slowly. Chu Luiyue had already been lying in bed for 3 days. She was completely unaware of everything that had happened outside. A barrier isolated all the noise outside. During these 3 days, Rongxiu had always been by her side. Every morning, Elder Wanzheng would come once to check on Chu Luiyue's situation. Seeing that she hadn't woken up, Elder Wanzheng became more and more anxious. However, in comparison, Rongxiu didn't seem to be so anxious. Elder Wanzheng could only temporarily suppress the emotions in his heart and wait patiently with them. Fortunately, Chu Luiyue's physical condition was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. And vaguely the aura on her body was still strengthening. Elder Wanzheng only thought that it was because she had broken through in the primordial north and obtained that opportunity, so he didn't take it to heart. This kid was already able to break through from a rank 8 warrior to a rank 9 warrior in a few days. No matter what happened, it didn't seem to be shocking anymore. It was a pity that Chu Luiyue hadn't woken up, so the Academy's investigation of the primordial north couldn't be carried out. However, with Rongxiu around, they couldn't disturb her and could only wait outside day by day. Chu Luiyue felt that she had a long dream. In the dream she had another name and another identity. She kept hearing someone calling her. Although she couldn't hear clearly what was being called, she knew that it was her. There seemed to be someone by her side all the time. She wanted to see the other person's appearance clearly, but she couldn't. Vaguely, she felt that this person seemed to be somewhat similar to Rongxiu, but it didn't feel completely the same. She felt a little puzzled and frowned. Later, she dreamed of a very strange scene. It was a snowy day. Goose feather-like snow fell. The world was covered in white snow, as if it had covered everything. Only one place had a special scenery. Many peach blossoms bloomed quietly in the ice and snow. The light pink petals swayed gently in the cold wind, and the stamen emitted a faint fragrance. With a light sniff, it refreshed one's heart. Against the pure silvery white background, these balls of pink looked especially lively and pleasing. Snowflakes fell on the petals, sparkling and translucent. She turned around and smiled at that person. "Look, I told you that peach blossoms can bloom in winter." That person seemed to chuckle softly and walk towards her. Closer and closer. Clang, a sound suddenly shattered all of the illusions. Chu Luiyue suddenly opened her eyes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1399. She sat up and looked in the direction of the sound. The door opened a crack and a big furry head poked in. Its movements suddenly stopped, and it looked helplessly at the teacup that had suddenly fallen in front of it. Clearly, it didn't expect that its subtle movements would cause such a big commotion. Who would have thought that someone would put a teacup on an unlocked door? Someone was too much. As if it sensed her gaze, it slowly turned its stiff neck and looked in her direction. A human and a beast looked at each other. A pair of icy blue eyes widened slightly, and there was some nervousness in them. Then it blinked. Awake, awake. Looking at Xue's dazed expression, Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh out loud, and she waved at it. "Xue, why are you in a daze? Come here." Roar! Xue let out an excited roar, and it quickly pounced on Chu Luiyue. With a vigorous leap, it directly jumped from the door into Chu Luiyue's arms. It was about to hug her. A cold and deep voice came from outside the door. Xue immediately became alert and it slammed on the brakes. It actually stopped half an inch in front of Chu Luiyue. Its big head almost hit Chu Luiyue's face. The scene seemed to have frozen. Chu Luiyue looked at the wet nose in front of her, and the pair of icy blue eyes that were filled with panic and guilt, and the corners of her eyes twitched slightly. A well-defined hand appeared on the door, and then it slowly pushed it open. Rongxiu walked in. It seemed to be evening at this time, and the afterglow of the setting sun shone on him with a faint golden glow, making him look like a god that had walked out of a painting. His deep and clear phoenix eyes looked at Chu Luiyue, and his thin scarlet lips curled up slightly. You're awake?" When he heard the commotion, he had already guessed it and immediately came in. Chu Luiyue looked at his face. The light behind him enveloped his face, and it was as clear as jade, but it also seemed to be covered by a layer of veil that couldn't be seen through. "Rongxiu." She tilted her head. I dreamt of you." Rongxiu's eyes moved slightly and he walked over. His footsteps were calm and his whole body was cold and noble. "Is that so?" Standing by the bed, he glanced at Xue's body. Xue shuddered and tactfully turned around to leave, running away like a wisp of smoke. "Chu Luiyue, what did you dream of?" asked Rongxiu softly as he sat down by the bed and held her hand. Chu Luiyue stared at him fixedly as if she wanted to see something from his eyes. She smiled. I took you to see the peach blossoms blooming in winter." Rongxiu's expression didn't change, but there seemed to be waves in the depths of his eyes. "Was it beautiful?" He held her face with one hand and the corners of his mouth curled up. A warm breath came from his palm, with deep affection and gentleness. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and she suddenly felt a strong sense of fatigue. She held Rongxiu's hand and gently pressed her face against it. Rongxiu was slightly stunned. In the next moment, Chu Luiyue looked up at him again. Perhaps it was because she had just woken up, or perhaps it was because the dream was too complicated, and it made her physically and mentally exhausted. Her voice became lazy and slightly elongated, and there was a hint of softness and coquettishness in it. "Rongxiu," she spoke in a low voice, but it was like a long silk thread that gently wrapped around his heart. His heart suddenly softened. He moved closer, took her into his arms, and kissed her between her eyebrows. "It's beautiful when I look at it with you," Chu Luiyue muttered. Her voice wasn't loud, but he heard it clearly. He couldn't help but laugh, and even the corners of his eyes and eyebrows had a hint of a smile. Really? Chu Liwei leaned on his shoulder and nodded gently. I don't know why, but I can't see your face clearly in my dreams. Rong Xiu paused and pinched her delicate earlobe. I'm right here. You can look at me however you want. Chu Liwei leaned in his arms for a while, and when she felt that her physical and mental strength had recovered, she propped herself up. She looked at him and her eyes were as bright as stars. Suddenly, she leaned forward and quickly kissed him on the lips. You're right. He was hers and he was right here. What was there to be conflicted about? Rong Xiu's eyes suddenly darkened. However, just as he was about to continue, Chu Liwei suddenly said, Rong Xiu, can you do me a favor? Rong Xiu paused. What favor? Chu Liwei looked hesitant. I want to go to Mount Pingmin. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. Why? No reason. Chu Liwei said, took half a step back and was about to lift the quilt and get up. Halfway through lifting the quilt, she suddenly stopped. Then she slowly raised her head and looked at Rong Xiu in a daze. How long have I slept? She vaguely knew that she was carried back to Mount Jianghu by Rong Xiu from the northern region of the primitive land, but she didn't remember how much time she had experienced on the way. Rong Xiu looked calm. 7 days. The corners of Chu Liue's eyes twitched crazily. She swallowed hard and asked word by word, then, my clothes for the past 7 days? I helped you change your clothes and I fed you tea and pills. Rong Xiu seemed to know what she wanted to ask and he answered smoothly. He suddenly approached and put his hands on Chu Liue's side. Chu Liue instinctively moved backward and only stopped when her back touched the head of the bed. Rong Xiu quietly closed in, and the distance between the two of them rapidly shortened. Finally they breathed. There seemed to be thousands of streams of light flowing in his eyes, which was intoxicating. Any woman in the world would find it difficult to break free from such a deep gaze. Then, Chu Liue's face suddenly became hot and her whole body was hot. The blood on my body? Those dirty blood stains naturally have to be washed away as soon as possible. Otherwise the wound will become inflamed and even fester, won't it? Rong Xiu continued her words. No one else in the academy can do this, so I can only do it personally. You don't want your identity to be exposed, right? He was very close, and when he spoke, his warm breath sprayed on her slender neck and ears. It was like a spark starting a prairie fire. Chu Liue didn't hear his words clearly for a moment, and only felt like something was gently scratching her heart, making her a little distracted. Don't worry. In order to let your wound recover as soon as possible, I will help you every day for the next few days. Chu Liue finally couldn't listen anymore. She grabbed the front of his clothes, pulled him over and kissed him. There seemed to be flames burning in her eyes, warm and bright. Let's see what else you can say. Rong Xiu suddenly sighed softly and his words were unclear. Actually, it's been hard on me. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. She hadn't looked at her face so carefully for a long time. A few months had passed and her appearance seemed to have changed slightly. Her eyes were more delicate and beautiful, and the contours of her cheeks were clearer. All in all, she looked more and more like the xuanhuan of the past. She remembered that when she was this age in her previous life, her appearance seemed to be 70 to 80% similar to her current appearance. Coupled with her expression, it was even more similar. A thought suddenly flashed through Chu Liue's mind. Would she become exactly the same as her old self in a few years? But how could there be someone who was exactly the same in this world? Chu Liue lowered her eyes slightly to hide the emotions in her eyes, and carefully put the mask back on. Yes or no, she would know when the time came. After checking her body from head to toe and confirming that there were no problems, Chu Liue turned to look at Rong Xiu. Will you help me with the previous favor? She was talking about the matter of Mount Pingmin. Rong Xiu's breath froze slightly, and then he smiled at her. I will do my best to help you. After Chu Liue packed up, she went to find Elder Wan Zheng. After all, he was her master and he had worked hard for her during this period of time. She had to go over and greet him. And the news of her waking up was also known by Elder Bo Yen, because it was Rong Xiu who came personally to tell him. What? You want Chu Yu to enter Mount Pingmin? Elder Bo Yen stopped what he was doing and closed the thick book with a puzzled look. He just woke up and his body should still be very weak, right? Isn't it inappropriate to go to Mount Pingmin at this time? Besides, that place has always been the place where students who have made mistakes have been imprisoned. He's fine, so there's no reason for him to. You don't have to worry about that. You know that he just broke through to the stage 9 martial artist. Besides, it's a stretch to say that she didn't do anything wrong. She originally didn't have the qualifications to follow Elder Hua Feng on this trip to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land, but she still went in the end. Furthermore, after she went, she also caused a lot of trouble. Being imprisoned in Mount Pengmin is not a punishment but a warning. Rong Xiu knew that Elder Bo Yen would not agree to this easily, so he had already prepared an excuse. Elder Bo Yen fell into deep thought and was still hesitant. But in the end, this matter should be blamed on Hua Feng. After all, without his permission, Chuyu couldn't have gone. As for what happened after that, it wasn't actually Chuyu's own will. Elder Bo Yen didn't really want to put all the blame on Chu Luiyue alone. He frowned and looked at Rong Xiu with uncertainty. Rong Xiu, there should be another reason why you want him to go to Mount Pengmin, right? Based on Rong Xiu's attitude towards Chuyu, he definitely wasn't here to punish him this time. Rong Xiu paused for a moment. Yes. Mount Pengmin is indeed dangerous, but the most dangerous place is often the safest place. A faint smile appeared on his face. I just need a period of time. On the other side, Elder Wanzheng was overjoyed when he saw Chu Luiyue. He pulled her over and sized her up a few times. After confirming that her small body had really recovered and that there were no other problems, he finally relaxed. Stinking brat. This sleep scared your master half to death. Elder Wanzheng was usually a rather serious person. Now that he said such words, it could be seen that he was deeply affected by Chu Luiyue. There was nothing he could do. When he thought of her lying in Rong Xiu's arms with a pale and haggard face, his heart tightened. All these years he had searched and searched, and it wasn't easy for him to find this disciple. How could he not feel heartache when something happened? Chu Luiyue's heart warmed. Master, don't worry, I'm fine. Wanzheng. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded. The two of them turned around and saw a barefoot old man waving a cattail leaf fan flying over. Elder Mengyi. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly skipped a beat. If I remember correctly, Elder Mengyi said that when Elder Wanzheng returned, he would show him the bill? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1401. Mengyi? Why are you here? Elder Wanzheng was in a good mood at this moment. When he looked at Elder Mengyi, he was all smiles. Of course, I'm here to deliver something to you. Elder Mengyi shouted with great vigor. As he spoke, he had already arrived in front of Elder Wanzheng. The moment he landed, he took a closer look and saw Chu Luiyue standing beside him. He was pleasantly surprised at first. Then he thought of something and his smile turned meaningful. Yoho, Chuyu, you're here too? What? Have you recovered? Chu Luiyue sighed inwardly. It seemed like the entire academy already knew that she had been unconscious for such a long time. Thank you for your concern, Elder Mengyi. Chu Luiyue bowed obediently. I just woke up today and my body is much better. I wanted to pay my master a visit, but I didn't expect to meet you here. May I know how Elder Mengyi is doing? Elder Mengyi flapped his fan and laughed. Good. Of course. He was staying in the academy and taking care of the Medicine Wind Valley. How could he not be doing well? The ones who weren't doing well were those who went to the north of the wilderness. Right, Wanzheng, I'm here today to deliver something to you. Elder Mengyi chuckled. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. She suddenly had the thought of leaving. Master, Elder Mengyi, please take your time. I won't disturb you any longer. Elder Wanzheng hurriedly said. Hey, why are you leaving so soon? We haven't had a proper talk yet. Chu Luiyue's mouth twitched. If she continued to stay, they wouldn't be able to have a proper talk. Elder Mengyi chuckled. If the child wants to leave, just let him go. He has just recovered and he has many things to do. Don't you think so, Chuyu? Chu Luiyue nodded seriously. It seemed like Elder Mengyi didn't intend to push her into a corner. However, Elder Wanzheng wasn't willing to do so. Even if you have something to do, you have to step back. She was his precious disciple. Who didn't she have to step back? Mengyi, what did you say you were going to give me? Elder Mengyi clenched his fist and coughed dryly. It's nothing much. Elder Wanzheng had a strange look on his face. Mengyi usually stayed in Medicine Wind Valley and rarely came out. Normally, they would only be willing to leave that place when there was an urgent matter. What's going on today? At this moment, another person arrived. Chuyu. Chu Luiyue turned his head and heaved a sigh of relief. Senior brother Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu, why are you here? Elder Wanzheng swept his gaze across the group. What day was it today? These people rarely set foot in this place, but they actually came together today. Rong Xiu's footsteps looked light and slow, but his speed was extremely fast. In a short while he had already arrived in front of them. He first bowed to the two elders, then slowly smiled and said, "Elder Bo Yin asked me to bring Chuyu to Pingmin Mountain." This time the two elders were both shocked. Pingmin Mountain? Again? There was a moment of silence. Chu Luiyue rubbed his glabella. How can this do? Chuyu just woke up, and his body hasn't recovered yet. He can't go. Elder Wan Zheng was protective of his disciple and would not agree no matter what. In his opinion, his precious disciple had just come out of the well and entered the fire pit. Master, this is Elder Bo Yan's order, we can't go against it. Chu Liwei just said a sentence when he was interrupted by Elder Wan Zheng. Don't worry. This time I'll personally go and seek an explanation for you. Bullying us has become a habit? Chu Liwei felt his head hurt even more. Elder Wan Zheng. Rong Xiu did not seem to be worried and only smiled. Elder Bo Yan has his reasons for doing this. Reasons? What reasons? Elder Wan Zheng was very unconvinced. His precious disciple had suffered a lot recently. How could he still go to Pingmin Mountain at this time? Rong Xiu calmly explained, that's right. After the incident in the northern part of the Great Desolate Land, the Academy has been investigating the truth behind it. I heard that in these 2 days the other first-rate families and clans have also come out one after another and started to do this. A turmoil might be coming. Elder Wan Zheng's movements paused, and his expression became complicated. Chuyu was the only one who was taken away by those people in public. Needless to say, she also obtained some kind of opportunity in that place and broke through to become a stage 9 warrior. She will definitely be one of the targets that everyone will investigate. Entering Pingmin Mountain, on one hand he can cultivate in peace and on the other hand he can avoid all these disturbances. Rong Xiu's tone was calm from beginning to end, but it carried a strange persuasiveness that made people involuntarily believe in it. Elder Wan Zheng was silent for a long time. Chu Liwei took a step forward. Master, you don't have to worry. I feel that Pingmin Mountain is actually quite good. She was speaking from the bottom of her heart. Unfortunately, in Elder Wan Zheng's ears, it was his precious disciple who said it on purpose so that he wouldn't be worried. He felt more and more heartache and shook his head repeatedly. Forget it. Since that's the case, you go over for a while. When this matter is over, you will definitely come out as soon as possible. Chu Liwei smiled. Then Master, I will go with Senior Rong Xiu now? Elder Wan Zheng waved his hand. Chu Liwei bowed again before leaving with Rong Xiu. After watching the two figures disappear, Elder Wan Zheng reluctantly retracted his gaze. Sai, don't be sad for now. Elder Meng Yi nudged him with his elbow and handed over something. What is this? Elder Wan Zheng took it with a blank face. Elder Meng Yi grinned. Actually, it's nothing much. Chapter 1402. After a while, the barrier in front of her finally rippled and slowly opened. Come in. An old and deep voice entered her ears. Chu Liwei was slightly stunned. This voice sounded a little more serious and cold than before, and vaguely there seemed to be a little tiredness. I haven't been here for a while, why? Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes, obviously sensing that something was wrong. He turned around and looked at Chu Liwei. Chu Liui's figure flashed as she followed Rong Xiu in. The two went straight and came to the tower. With previous experience, Chu Liwei was now familiar with the place. She walked straight to the door. When she was 3 steps away, the door slowly opened. Looking inside, it was pitch black. Chu Liui's heart tightened. She took a deep breath and walked inside. You, Chu Yu. Rong Xiu suddenly called out to her. Chu Liwei turned around. The two looked at each other. In the silence, something seemed to be flowing slowly. Rong Xiu's thin lips moved slightly, and waves gradually appeared in his eyes. But in the end he calmed down. Everything went well. Chu Liui's lips curved slightly. Don't worry, I will. With that, she turned around and walked through the door without hesitation. Bang! The door closed tightly, and her figure completely disappeared from sight. Rong Xiu stood tall, with one hand behind his back, and stared at the door for a long time. After a long time, he finally turned around and left. Coming to this place again, Chu Liwei felt a long-lost sense of familiarity. Step by step, she walked inside. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks and looked at the scene in front of her with a shocked expression. In the empty and quiet room, there were originally 7 suspended doors, but now, only 6 were left. The 6 doors had changed their positions and the distance between them was the same. At a glance, it was impossible to tell that there used to be 7 doors here. Chu Liwei hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Elder Meng, why is there a door missing here?" After a moment of silence, Elder Meng spoke in a low voice. "Nothing much, just a little trouble." "Little troublemaker?" It didn't look like it at all. Chu Liwei cursed in his heart. There were a total of 7 doors and all of a sudden one was missing. If she hadn't been here before, she wouldn't have noticed the problem. However, Chu Liwei knew that Elder Meng didn't want to talk about it in detail, so he didn't continue to ask. "Originally, during this period of time I wasn't going to let anyone in, but Bo Yen and Rong Xiu both spoke up for you, so I had no choice but to allow it," Old Meng said in a deep voice. A strange expression flashed across Chu Liue's face. In the eyes of others, being imprisoned here was one of the greatest punishments. They were afraid that they would not be able to avoid it. Only when it came to her, she was not the only one who wanted to come. Even the others were helping her. This kind of feeling was really awesome. Rong Xiu and the rest must have used the same excuse they used to deal with Elder Wanzheng to convince Elder Meng. For some reason, Chu Liwei felt a little guilty. "Thank you, Elder Meng." She cupped her fists and bowed respectfully. "Alright, you've been in the academy for a few months and this is the 3rd time you've come. Others may not know what kind of person you are, but do you think I don't know?" Elder Meng sneered. Chu Liwei coughed softly and touched her nose awkwardly. This was really, although there's a door missing, it doesn't matter. You just have to choose one and go in. He really didn't know what this kid had done to make Bo Yen and Rong Xiu speak up for him, just to send him here. If it was any other time it wouldn't matter. However, during this period of time, if it wasn't for those people, he wouldn't have let this kid in at this time. Forget it. In the end it was just a small matter. Chu Liwei responded and looked at the 6 doors in front of her. These doors were still emitting a faint glow, and were no different from what she had seen before. Chu Liwei hesitated for a moment and pointed to the leftmost door. "I want to choose this one." "Enter." Elder Meng's answer was straightforward. Chu Liwei walked over. She pressed one hand on the door and pushed hard. The door didn't budge. Chu Liwei took a step back in surprise and took a closer look. There was no problem. But why didn't this door open? She tried to increase her strength. She still couldn't push it open. This shouldn't be her problem, right? Chu Liwei shouted with some hesitation. "Elder Meng, this door can't be opened?" Elder Meng obviously didn't expect this to happen. In the past, all these doors could be opened casually. "You really can't open it?" Chu Liwei pushed again with an innocent look. It was like an iron wall. Indeed, it couldn't be opened. "Then try another one," Elder Meng said. Chu Liwei nodded and walked to the 2nd door. After a push, her expression changed again. "Elder Meng, I still can't open it." "Impossible." Elder Meng raised his voice. Chu Liwei smiled bitterly. "Do you think I can lie to you here?" It wasn't that she hadn't been here before. Every time she directly pushed the door open and entered. When had it ever been like this time, where she couldn't open it after much effort? Clearly there was something wrong with this door. Elder Meng was silent for a moment. "Try another one." Chu Liwei held her breath and walked to the 3rd door. Staring at the door in front of her, she suddenly had a strong premonition. Perhaps, she reached out her hand and tried it. Then she shook her head and gave up. "Elder Meng, no." Then, under Elder Meng's instructions, Chu Liwei tried all 6 doors. None of them worked. All the doors seemed to be locked from the inside. They couldn't be opened at all. Chu Liwei rubbed between her eyebrows. She felt a headache coming on. Elder Meng couldn't help but ask, "Kid? Is there something wrong with you?" Chu Liwei was speechless. "Elder Meng, I haven't been here for a while. This shouldn't be my fault, right?" Chu Liwei felt that this was a scam. When she came there was 1 door missing. Obviously something had happened here before. How could she be blamed for this? Elder Meng choked for a moment, then snorted. "Then you can stay in this hall. This kid has a temper. It was already troublesome enough because of that thing, and now I have to take care of this kid. What a thankless task," Chu Liwei said. "Stay in the hall then. These doors can't be opened anyway. Isn't it the same wherever I am?" After saying that, Chu Liwei sat on the ground. The jade floor was cold and cool. A wave of coldness swept over. Chu Liwei couldn't help but shiver. She sat cross-legged with her shoulders hanging naturally. Her palms were on her knees with her palms facing up. The surrounding heaven and earth force slowly surged toward her body. Chu Liwei gradually calmed down. Although the concentration of heaven and earth force here wasn't as strong as the one behind the door, it wasn't bad. Suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind like a spark from a flint. Wait. The door that disappeared, could it be? Was it the door that she went through before? Digression, I only got home after 8 o'clock tonight. I'm so sorry. I'll update at 12 o'clock tomorrow. I'm going to eat. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1403. Just as this thought popped up in her head, Chu Liyue suddenly felt a faint light flash across her eyes. She closed her eyes and looked again, but there was nothing there. The void in front of her was still empty. Her fingertips moved slightly, and she was surprised to find that the space around her seemed to have become more viscous. This change was very subtle. If one did not look carefully, they would not notice it. Confusion surfaced in Chu Liyue's heart. This place, why is it getting weirder? She wanted to ask Elder Meng, but on second thought, everything here should be under Elder Meng's control. Since he did not have any reaction, it should be fine. She closed her eyes and entered the state of cultivation again. Chu Liyue stayed in Mount Pingmin just like that. Outside, however, a storm was already brewing. Liang Shaokong, the third young master of the Liang family, died in the primeval desolate north for no reason. They did not even know who the murderer was. Liang Xiaoxiao went back to the Liang family without stopping. When she reached home, the Liang family had already received the news. The atmosphere in the Liang family, from inside to outside, was solemn. In the study, the Liang family's master, Xianxia, was frowning. The dark circles under his eyes, as well as his bloodshot eyes, made this extraordinary figure seem much older and more haggard. Although he had several sons, he had always doted on Liang Shaokong the most. Now that he had lost his beloved son, how could he not be sad? When Liang Xiaoxiao came in, she found that the air here seemed to have frozen. Father. She opened her mouth and tears were falling from her eyes. Liang Yi immediately went forward. Xiaoxiao, you're finally back. He stared at Liang Xiaoxiao. You went to the primeval desolate north with the academy. Do you know what happened to your brother? Liang Xiaoxiao wiped her tears and asked while holding back her sobs. Father, didn't you say that the family has something to do, so you won't get involved in the primeval desolate north? Why would third brother appear there? Liang Yi's expression froze and he looked away. He sneaked over behind my back. Father, do you believe what you said? Third brother didn't go alone. He brought along a few elders from the clan. Without your permission, how could third brother possibly invite them? Liang Xiaoxiao originally didn't know about it, but this matter had already spread throughout the entire Liang family. No matter how slow she was, she should have known. Liang Yi loosened his grip on her arm and half turned around. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. After a long while, he said, I'm sorry. You also know that your third brother is not the most outstanding in all aspects. It will be difficult for him to convince everyone to inherit the family business. If he can make a contribution in the northern region of the great desolate land, then, Father. If Jiang Jiwan escaped to the Yuntian Tower, then it would not be so easy to force her out again. After all, the Yuntian Tower was also a first-class family, and its status was higher than theirs. They dared to come to the Immortal Water Mausoleum to cause trouble, but they might not dare to go to the Yuntian Tower's door. But Liang Yi had a different attitude. The Yuntian Tower might not protect her. Xiaoxiao, didn't you say that Jiang Jiwan asked Rongxiu for help, but Rongxiu ignored her? Liang Xiaoxiao smiled mockingly. That's right. She still thinks that she's the future princess of the Yuntian Tower and that Rongxiu will treat her differently from others. In fact, I think Rongxiu won't even look at her. That day, Rongxiu gave Jiang Jiwan a hard slap in front of everyone. That's right. Liang Yi sighed in relief. Rongxiu is in charge of the Yuntian Tower now. His attitude toward Jiang Jiwan will determine the attitude of the Yuntian Tower toward her. He did not believe that the Yuntian Tower would want to get involved with such a big problem. Liang Xiaoxiao's eyes lit up. Father is right. Jiang Ziyuan had already been expelled from the Ling Xiao Academy, and her reputation in the Divine Ruins world had reached rock bottom. Even if the Immortal Water Mausoleum is the leader of the 28 divisions of the Yuntian Tower, they might not be willing to protect her. Liang Yi nodded. Then, let's go to the Yuntian Tower. If Jiang Jiwan is rejected, we can make our move. Yuntian Tower. Jiang Hetian and Jiang Jiwan had been waiting outside the barrier for 3 days and 3 nights. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1404. After what had happened, Jianghu had thought that her mentality had been tempered and that she would be able to deal with any problem she faced. However, after waiting here for 3 days, she was on the verge of despair again. She had never thought that the Yuntian Tower, where she had come and gone freely since she was a child, would one day reject her. And so mercilessly. Jiang Hetian's expression darkened. However, he was a man who had seen his fair share of storms and was able to keep his composure better than Jianghu. He glanced at the sky, then stepped forward again and asked the guard in charge. "Is Elder Yu Jingzuan not here yet?" The guard cupped his hands in salute, but his expression was cold and indifferent. "Elder Yu Jingzuan is very busy. We don't know when he will arrive." How could Jiang Hetian not see that the guard was being perfunctory? If it was in the past, they would not have dared to treat him like this. However, now that the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower had been decided and Jianghu had failed, they no longer had to treat her like this. Not to mention, the news of Jianghu's expulsion from Lingxiao College had already spread like wildfire. Given the sensitivity of the Yuntian Tower, they would have known about it long ago. If not for the fact that the Tomb of Immortal Water had a place among the 28 tribes, they would not even have had the chance to wait here. They would have been directly kicked out. Jiang Hetian glanced inside again. Of course, he could not see anything clearly from here. He paused and could not help but ask, "Did you really inform your superiors of our arrival?" The guard frowned. "Patriarch Jiang, do you not trust us?" Wasn't he openly questioning them? Jiang Hetian's heart skipped a beat. It's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Maybe Elder Yu Jingzuan is still busy, we'll just wait a little longer. After saying that, he took 2 steps back and stood to the side. When Jiang Ziyuan saw this, she almost gnashed her teeth to pieces. If not for her, father would not have to suffer such humiliation. What's the fuss? Just then, a cold and serious voice sounded. Jiang Hetian and Jiang Jiwan were overjoyed and looked up. An old man walked out of the barrier. It was Honorable Elder Yu Jing, whom they had been waiting for 3 days. Honorable Elder Yu Jing. Jiang Hetian hurriedly stepped forward, and just as he was about to speak, he saw Elder Yu Jing raising his palm. There's no need to say more. This old man already knows what happened. His tone was much colder than before. However, the fact that he was able to come out at this time was already a pleasant surprise for Jiang Hetian and his daughter, so how could they care less? Elder Yu Jingzuan glared at Jiang Jiwan. "You want to enter the Yuntian Tower for self-reflection and cultivation?" Jiang Jiwan felt a chill run down her spine and responded in a low voice. "Ziyuan has been doing something wrong recently and has caused a lot of trouble for everyone. Therefore, please stay here and cultivate while you wait for the patriarch to come out of seclusion. Clan leader has already been in seclusion for a few years. I don't know when he will come out. Once you leave, I don't know when you'll be able to come out. Are you sure?" Honorable Elder Yu Jing narrowed his eyes. Jiang Jiwan's hands, which were crossed on her lower abdomen, were tightly intertwined. After a moment she said, "Clan leader has always treated Ziyuan with love and care. This is what Ziyuan should do. As long as clan leader doesn't come out of seclusion, Ziyuan will not step out of Wanzhong Mountain." Wanzhong Mountain was the place where clan leader was in seclusion. Elder Yu Jing stared at Jiang Jiwan from head to toe for a long time. "Since that's the case, from today onwards you will go. Oh, why is this place so lively?" Before Honorable Elder Yu Jing could finish his words, a voice with a smile came from afar. However, when they heard this voice, their expressions changed. In the blink of an eye, that person's figure had already approached quickly. "Greetings to 36 Honorable Elder Ming." The guard bowed respectfully. 36 Honorable Elder Ming chuckled and waved his hand. His eyes quickly swept across the few of them and he asked in surprise, "Oh, Patriarch Jiang, when did you guys come? Why didn't you say anything in advance? Look, you came from afar, but we didn't make any preparations in advance. What if we neglected you?" Jiang Hetian's face was faintly green. Why is this guy here? And judging from his words, he's clearly here to cause trouble. He deliberately only revealed the news to Elder Yu Jing because he wanted to enter the Yuntian Tower before the news spread. As long as what was done, the others couldn't jump out to object. However, now that 36 Honorable Elder Ming was here, it would be difficult for Jiang Jiwan to enter the Yuntian Tower. He forced a smile and said, 36 Honorable Elder Ming is busy and doesn't dare to disturb you. We have already asked Honorable Elder Yu Jing. I heard you guys talking about clan leader just now. What's going on? 36 Honorable Elder Ming chuckled and interrupted him. He calmly and decisively brushed this matter aside and looked at Jiang Jiwan. It seems, it has something to do with you? Asking the obvious, Jiang Jiwan was secretly angry. According to 36 Honorable Elder Ming's identity and strength, he could immediately know what he wanted to know. He spoke so openly just to deliberately make things difficult for her and embarrass her. However, Jiang Jiwan didn't dare to say anything and could only repeat what she said earlier. Of course, she said it in a sad, pitiful, and sincere way. However, this was of no use to 36 revered Elder Ming. So, you'll be staying in the Yintian Tower from now on? 36 Honorable Elder Ming asked directly after hearing that. Jiang Jiwan choked. Why does this sound so strange? If clan leader can come out of seclusion soon, then Xuan can naturally. Clan leader has been in seclusion for a few years. There's another 10 years, 20 years. TSK, if I remember correctly, Xuan, you're already at the age of marriage this year, right? You're wasting your youth here. Wouldn't that be a waste? 36 Honorable Elder Ming sighed. Jiang Jiwan's expression instantly became very interesting. Marriage? Was he deliberately mocking her for not being chosen as the princess consort? All these years, everyone thought that she would be the mistress of the Yintian Tower, but in the end there was nothing. Jiang Jiwan lowered her eyes, afraid that the emotions in her eyes would surge out and be seen by them. She gritted her teeth and said, "This kind of thing can't be forced in the end. It still depends on fate. Moreover, my personal matters are insignificant. Compared to clan leader coming out of seclusion, it's really not worth mentioning. Whether it's 10 years, 20 years, or even longer, I can wait." She spoke very firmly, because this was her only way out at the moment. 36 Honorable Elder Ming raised his eyebrows and the smile on his face faded. Even if you're willing to do this, you have to see if the others agree. After all, this Yintian Tower doesn't belong to your Jiang family, right? Jiang Jiwan's heart skipped a beat and she quickly defended herself. 36 Honorable Elder Ming, I didn't. Moreover, clan leader's status is precious and special. If you go, what kind of name will you have? 36 Honorable Elder Ming stroked his beard. Now that the princess consort is in charge of the Yintian Tower, she will handle everything. You don't have to worry about this. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1405. Dead Silence. The moment Chu Luiyue finished speaking, the surrounding air seemed to have frozen. Elder Bo Yan's eyelids twitched violently, and he asked almost instinctively, Used? What does that mean? Chu Luiyue suddenly smiled and her eyes curved into crescents. I used it to reconstruct the three-eyed eagle's physical body. She was still hesitant about whether she should confess this matter. After thinking for a while, she finally chose to tell the truth. On one hand, the reaction of the scale had already pointed the finger at her, and the Great Phoenix Dragon clan would definitely investigate this matter to the end. On the other hand, she had formed a contract with Ziqin, and she would have to summon him whenever she traveled in the Divine Ruins world. The two Great Phoenix Dragon wing bones were in its body, so how could they not find it? This matter could not be concealed at all, and it would be exposed sooner or later. Instead of running away pathetically, it was better to face it directly. So what if she used it? When Mao Yao heard Chu Luiyue's words, his vision turned black, and he almost fainted. This Xuanhuan actually used their noble corpses to reconstruct the three-eyed eagle's physical body? Disgrace. This was the greatest disgrace. Before coming here, he had imagined countless scenarios. However, he had never thought of this one. Although the three-eyed eagle was also a divine beast, its level was obviously much lower than theirs. How dare Xuanhuan do this? Mao Yao's chest seemed to be surging wildly, and he could not even complete his sentence. He only raised his finger and pointed at Chu Luiyue, his body trembling slightly. The onlookers were also shocked. What kind of trick was this? Using the Great Phoenix Dragon's corpse to reconstruct the three-eyed eagle's physical body? Although the effect was not bad, that was a Great Phoenix Dragon. Elder Bo Yan's face was blank. At this moment, the first thought that flashed through his mind was, no wonder the three-eyed eagle's combat power was so strong. It did not lose to the crimson gold heavenly phoenix at all. This is a serious matter. Don't let your emotions affect your decisions and speak nonsense. Elder Wanzheng suddenly let out a deep shout. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction of the voice. Elder Wanzheng's face was cold, but his eyes were filled with anxiety and nervousness. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. She knew that Elder Wanzheng didn't want her to bear the brunt of the danger, so he said that on purpose. But, She was the one who did it, so she should bear all the responsibility. She raised her chin slightly. This was done by me alone. It has nothing to do with Taizu or the academy. If you want to find out who's responsible, just come at me. You. Shengguan Jing went forward and grabbed her arm, looking anxious. Did she know how much trouble this would bring her? The great void phoenix dragon race had chased after him for thousands of years just for that corpse. Now that she had taken it for herself, she had touched their reverse scale. Even he might not be able to protect her. Chu Liyue's lips curved slightly, and then she pried Taizu's hand away bit by bit. Taizu, one person is responsible for one's actions. This has nothing to do with you. But I knew that this day would come when I dared to do this. After Chu Liyue finished speaking, she suddenly tapped her toes. Her figure quickly flew into the sky. Finally, she stopped when she was almost at the same level as Mao Yao and the others. You, Elder Wanjing wanted to go over without thinking, but Elder Huafeng stopped him. Wait. Let's see what that girl plans to do. Elder Wanjing was extremely anxious. What time is it now? If we're late, I'm afraid she would lose her life. Elder Huafeng gritted his teeth. Didn't you see that Rong Xiu hasn't moved yet? Perhaps they have other ways. Elder Wanjing turned his head and saw that Rong Xiu was still standing on the spot. He looked up slightly and was staring at the two sides that were in a confrontation. His face was expressionless, making it hard to guess. Elder Wanjing and the others hesitated. They all knew how much Rong Xiu cared about Shangguanyu. But until now he was still biding his time. Did he really have other ways? In fact, Rong Xiu had already ignored all the chaotic sounds around him. He put one hand behind his back and cracked his knuckles. He seemed to be counting the time, but also seemed to be waiting for something. His deep phoenix eyes seemed to be calm, but in reality they were surging with undercurrents. Boom! Another bolt of heavenly lightning struck down. The top of Thousand Wine Mountain was already in a mess. Previously, Elder Bo Yen and the others had spent a lot of effort to recover from the incident, and it wasn't easy. Now that the Tianlei had fallen, everything was gone. Trees fell and rocks collapsed. The charred marks were a ghastly sight. Only the spring in the middle seemed to be sealed by an invisible barrier. The Tianlei fell around it, but it did not fall into it. Frost had condensed and covered half of it. Something seemed to be stirring in its depths, ready to erupt at any time. You're quite bold at such a young age. Mao Yao stared at Chu Liyue and laughed out of anger. Looks like you've already thought about how you're going to die. Chu Liyue also laughed. Not really. I've died once, so I cherish my life a lot. I'm here to discuss with you how we should resolve this matter. Mao Yao thought he had heard wrongly. You used the corpse of my great Phoenix Dragon clan and you still want to live? Dream on. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly raised his hand. Suddenly, a dazzling light burst out from the scales. Then, it turned into a huge dragon and went straight for Chu Liyue. Shengguan Jing was shocked. Oh no. That's Mao Yao's true body. Digression. 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1406. 36 Respected Elder Ming glanced at her indifferently. His gaze was extremely indifferent, but it suddenly made Jiang Jiwan feel a little ashamed. That was an expression that only a powerful person who had been in a high position for a long time would reveal when facing a weak and lowly ant. Jiang Jiwan suddenly felt uncomfortable in her heart. Although she wasn't born in a real first-rate family or clan, she had always thought of herself as a favored child all these years by relying on the doting of the clan leader, coupled with her moving appearance and outstanding talent. Every time she came to Yintian Tower she was proud and high above. There had never been a moment when she understood so clearly that everything about her was inferior to others. She wasn't any nobler than the others. This old man has already said that such a small matter shouldn't alarm the princess consort. It's the same for this old man to do it on her behalf. 36 Respected Elder Ming said slowly. But, Jiang Jiwan still wanted to defend herself, but she met 36 Respected Elder Ming's gaze. She suddenly stopped talking, and the rest of her words were stuck in her throat, unable to be said. Considering each other's faces, this old man didn't say some things directly earlier. But if you insist on being stubborn, this old man won't be polite with you. It was probably because Jiang Jiwan's words that offended 36 Respected Elder Ming. His expression became much calmer and he said slowly, Jiang Jiwan, the matter of you being expelled from Lingxiao College has already caused an uproar in the city. Why did you come to Yintian Tower at this juncture? Do you really think that we don't know? Are you treating everyone else as fools? Lingxiao College was the #1 college in the Divine Ruins world. Although it was extremely difficult to get into, it was very rare that they would expel a student so decisively. All these years, those who were expelled from the college had all committed unforgivable mistakes, which was why they were forcefully expelled from the college. Lingxiao College didn't announce the reason for Jiang Jiwan's expulsion to the public. But just thinking about it, one would know that it wasn't a small matter. After all, she used to be highly regarded in Lingxiao College. One could only imagine what Jiang Jiwan had done to make Lingxiao College make the next decision. How dare she come to the Yuntian Tower to seek protection? Jiang Jiwan's body swayed, and the last trace of blood on her lips completely faded. 36 Respected Elder Ming. Elder Yu Jing frowned. It's normal for young people to make small mistakes occasionally. Besides, small mistake? 36 Revered Elder Ming laughed, not concealing his mockery. This old man would like to ask, what kind of small mistake is it? What could make Elder Danqing want to sever their master-disciple relationship? Her black jade-like eyes flashed with a bright light. It was like a ray of afterglow that was thrown into a pool of autumn water, causing faint ripples. Fine light and shadow intertwined, moving one's heartstrings. She blinked her eyes in a daze. Just now, it was as if a ray of light had flashed past her eyes. This statement wasn't accurate because just now, her eyes were closed. However, she had indeed seen that faint ray of light. It was as if something had flashed into her mind. But when she opened her eyes, everything disappeared again. Chu Luiyue frowned. She had never felt this way before. Only this time, after entering this place, did it inexplicably become like this. And, vaguely, she felt that Elder Meng didn't seem to know about this matter. She tried her best to keep her expression calm as her gaze slowly swept across the 6 doors. Everything was normal. It was as if nothing had happened. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes quietly. Not long after, that ray of light appeared again. This time, Chu Luiyue was finally sure that that thing had indeed quietly entered her mind. That ray of light was like a flying butterfly, wandering back and forth in front of her eyes, as if it was outlining something. Vaguely, Chu Luiyue finally saw the outline of that thing. Immediately, her heart skipped a beat. Because that ray of light had actually outlined a door in her mind. With just a glance, Chu Luiyue was sure that this was the door that she had entered before. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1407. Didn't this door disappear? Why did it suddenly appear here? Chu Luiyue was stunned for a long time before she finally accepted this fact. She adjusted her breathing and maintained the appearance of everything as usual. Gradually, the outline and lines of the door became clearer. Finally, it appeared in front of Chu Luiyue's eyes. If only this door could be opened. Just as this thought flashed through her mind, Chu Luiyue realized that the door had really opened. At this moment, she realized that her consciousness seemed to be controlled by some kind of power and condensed into a small figure. That small figure was exactly the same as her and could move according to her consciousness. Just as she was about to enter, the small figure entered through the door. Light and shadow changed in front of her eyes. Something seemed to be flying past him at high speed. It brought a gust of cold wind. After a long while, the surroundings gradually quieted down. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes. Immediately, she held her breath. She had actually entered the door. It was still the same square space and all kinds of free and unrestrained lines were drawn. Even, the density of the heaven and earth origin force was exactly the same as before. The invisible surging power began to gather rapidly in Chu Luiyue's body. At the top of the tower. In the quiet and empty room, a blue-robed old man sat cross-legged. His hair was white, and his face was wrinkled with traces of time erosion. His aura was ethereal, and he had the demeanor of an immortal. In the void in front of him, a horsetail whisk floated quietly. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Suddenly, his brows moved slightly. A low and hoarse voice came from his throat. The next moment he opened his eyes. It was a pair of gray eyes that were extremely pure and clean. They were as pure as a newborn baby, and as vast as the vicissitudes of life that had seen thousands of sails, deep and tolerant. If one were to meet such a pair of eyes, it would be as if all the secrets would be exposed. At this moment he was looking at a door not far in front of him. That door and his horsetail whisk looked at each other from afar, facing each other. A look of contemplation flashed through Elder Meng's eyes. This door doesn't seem right? But upon closer inspection, it seemed to be quite normal and he couldn't tell what was wrong. Am I thinking too much? Elder Ming calmed his heart. During this period of time, he had been tormented by this thing to the point of choking. It was a little restless before and he spent a lot of effort to move it from the first floor to the top floor. He put it in front of him and looked at it personally. I can't let anything happen again. Elder Ming stared at the door for a while to make sure there was nothing wrong with it before he closed his eyes again. But his heart was still drumming more or less. Digression. I'll come back after dinner, it's the last day, don't forget to vote. This month's comment stars, monthly vote stars and recommendation stars if you want to verify it. Mobile users please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1408. I've run into a little trouble. Dugu Mabao said faintly. He said it casually, but Rong Xiao understood that it was not a small matter for him to be like this. I've blocked all news and used some means. There shouldn't be any problems in the short term. Dugu Mabao continued. Hearing him say this, Rong Xiao swallowed the rest of his words. Where's your? Dugu Mabao paused. She seems to have broken through to the 9th stage? It shouldn't be long before she breaks through to the God realm, right? Rong Xiao nodded. She's at Mount Pingmin. Dugu Mabao narrowed his eyes and didn't speak for a while. There seemed to be a glimmer of light in his demonic purple eyes. She went there on her own? Yes. I guessed. Dugu Mabao didn't look surprised, as if he had already expected it. How much did she remember? Speaking of this, he raised his gaze and looked at Rong Xiao. Rong Xiao's thin scarlet lips curled up slightly. He walked over with a faint smile. I'm really not sure. Some time ago she was in a coma. When she woke up, she said she wanted to go to Mount Pingmin. Other than that, there didn't seem to be anything unusual. As for what she remembered and how much she remembered, she refused to tell me, so I can't guess. Of course, he knew that Chu Liwei remembered a lot of things. Otherwise, she wouldn't have directly asked to go to Mount Pingmin and be so sure that he was willing to help. But she didn't seem to want to lay her cards on the table. He simply didn't ask. Dugu Mabao was silent for a moment. Let her be. During this period of time, there will be a lot of trouble coming to the door. She can also avoid it. I think so too. Rong Xiao nodded. With the support of the academy, I think those people won't be able to cause much trouble. But, are you sure the situation on your side is okay? Otherwise, Dugu Mabao frowned. With such a serious expression on her chubby, white and tender little face, it was always easy for people to fall out of character. Fortunately, other than himself, only Rong Xiao was here. No need. Dugu Mabao picked up his teacup. Lingxiao College suffered a lot in this trip to the northern region of the Untainted Land, and there will be a lot of trouble later. Keep an eye on them. Don't worry about that. Rong Xiao smiled. No matter what, Yuntian Tower and I will always be with Lingxiao College. Upon hearing this, Dugu Mabao was relieved. Although he had always been very picky about Rong Xiao, relatively speaking, among these people, Rong Xiao was considered more reliable. The room fell into a brief silence. I have to make a trip back to the Red Moon Desert. Dugu Mabao said. There seems to be a problem on Diwu's side. Thinking about it, he had already been out for quite some time. It was time to go back and take a look. He could almost imagine how Lan Xiao had scolded him behind his back. At first he was a little worried, but now that Chu Liwei had gone to Mount Pingmin, he might not be out for a while. He could take this opportunity to go back. Please be careful. Rong Xiao nodded and asked again. When are you leaving? Today. Dugu Mabao had always been a person who paid attention to efficiency. Rong Xiao paused. Then Elder Bo Yin. He seems to have noticed something. Dugu Mabao took a sip of tea and then said casually, just let it be. Don't worry about it. Anyway, they would not be able to find out anything in a short time. Seeing Dugu Mabao say this, Rong Xiao did not ask any more. Then please be careful. Dugu Mabao put down the teacup and walked forward. When he walked to the middle of the room, he stopped. Bang. A small flame suddenly ignited on his robes. Wherever the flame passed, the mottled bloodstains disappeared, and his robe was brand new. Under the light of the flame, it emitted an extremely faint light like scales. In a short while, he had already returned to his normal appearance. Then he waved his hand. The void shook. A crack in space appeared out of nowhere. Dugu Mabao suddenly turned around and looked at Rong Xiao. During this period, I'll leave you, to you. You must take good care of her. Rongxiu smiled. Rongxiu has a duty. I will do my best. Of course, he would dote on his princess consort. Dugumabao choked, snorted and stepped in. His small figure instantly disappeared from the room. The crack in space quickly recovered, and even the energy fluctuations in the room quickly calmed down. Everything was quiet and peaceful as if nothing had happened. Rongxiu stood quietly on the spot for a while. Just as he was about to turn around and go back, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. He raised his eyebrows slightly and looked out the window. An extremely faint and cold smile seemed to flash across his face. Interesting. It seemed that those people had already gone to the Yuntian Tower and planned to make them take the blame together? Shue. Rongxiu suddenly shouted. Shue, who had automatically disappeared for a long time, finally appeared. A snow-white head poked out from behind the screen. Go back to the Yuntian Tower first. Shue's eyes, which were originally filled with hope, suddenly dimmed. Go back? What's so good about going back? My dear is here. Although I can't see her, at least we're in the same place. If I go back, who knows when I'll see her again? Rongxiu glanced at it with a cold gaze. Patriarch is finally coming out of seclusion. I have to go and express my gratitude. Shue's eyes flashed with surprise. Coming out of seclusion? Didn't he? Meeting Rongxiu's gaze, Shue suppressed the doubts in its heart, sneezed and left obediently. When its figure disappeared, Rongxiu's lips curled up slightly. He actually came out of seclusion. That's really, even more exciting. Digression. It's the last day. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1409. The Liang family rushed to the Yuntian Tower as fast as they could and bumped into Jiang, who was about to leave. When enemies met, their eyes blazed with hatred. Because of Liang Shaokang's death, Liang Yi and Liang Xiaoxiao now viewed everyone in the Tomb of Immortal Water as their enemy. Among them was the head of the Jiang family, Jiang. Seeing their aggressive approach, Jiang already understood 70% to 80% of what was going on. Before he came, he had already asked Jiang to tell him everything that had happened in the northern region of the wilderness. Jiang also knew that only her father could be relied on at this time, so she told him everything. Liang Shaokang's matter was also included. Head of the Liang family. Jiang cupped his hands politely. However, the other party didn't buy it. He scanned the surroundings and found that Jiang was the only one here. Jiang was nowhere to be seen. His heart sank. Where's Jiang? You're asking about my daughter? Oh, she just entered the Yuntian Tower with 36 revered elders Ming and Yu Jing to accompany the head of the family at Wanzhong Mountain. Jiang played it down. However, his words revealed an important piece of information. Jiang was now under the protection of the Yuntian Tower. Liang Yi and his daughter's expressions changed slightly. They had hurried over because they were afraid of such a situation. They didn't expect. This is really strange. Jiang has already been expelled from Lingxiao College. Logically speaking, the Yuntian Tower wouldn't accept her at this time, right? Why would they let her in? Liang Xiaoxiao didn't have that much patience and directly said coldly. Jiang was displeased, but he could only endure the other party's status and laugh. Although Ziyuan is my daughter, she grew up in the Yuntian Tower and has a close relationship with the head of the family. The revered elders of the Yuntian Tower have always treated her as their closest junior. What's so strange about this? Liang Xiaoxiao sneered. Was Jiang worthy? The patriarch of the Yuntian Tower was still in closed-door training. It was impossible for him to speak up for Jiang. Moreover, things were different now. Right now, Yuntian had a real princess consort overseeing it. There was no room for Jiang to jump around. I really don't know what kind of tricks that B*TCH used. Patriarch Liang, if you want to see Ziyuan, it's not impossible. You can just ask the guard to report it. However, Ziyuan came here this time to accompany the patriarch out of seclusion. Whether she could come out or not was another matter. Now that the matter had been settled, Jiang courage was greatly relieved. Liang Xiaoxiao was furious and was about to step forward. Xiaoxiao. Liang Yi was rather calm as he called out to her in a deep voice. Only then did Liang Xiaoxiao manage to suppress the anger in her heart. Since she has already entered the Yuntian Tower, we shall not disturb her any further. Liang Yi was very decisive. The Yuntian Tower should know the consequences of doing this. But they still did it. There must be something fishy going on. Dad, Liang Xiaoxiao was unwilling. Liang Yi looked at her meaningfully and turned to leave. Liang Xiaoxiao stomped her feet and quickly followed. Jiang Hetian looked at their backs as they returned in defeat. His hanging heart was finally relieved. No matter what, they had avoided a lot of trouble this time. With the Yuntian Tower, their immortal water mausoleum, would not have any problems. Dad, why did you stop me just now? I want to ask those people in the Yuntian Tower if there's something wrong with their brains. How could such a B***tch deserve their protection? On the way back, Liang Xiaoxiao was still angry. In comparison, Liang Yi was much calmer. You even know this, do you think those people in the Yuntian Tower don't know? Liang Xiaoxiao was stunned. You mean, the father and daughter of the Jiang family obviously have other cards up their sleeves to make the Yuntian Tower compromise for them. I just don't know, what is it? Liang Yi murmured, puzzled. Xiaoxiao, you used to have a good relationship with her. Do you know anything? Liang Xiaoxiao sneered. She's a person who only thinks for herself and is very careful. If she really had such a powerful card up her sleeve, do you think she would let me know? Liang Yi frowned. If that's the case, it'll be difficult to find trouble with her. Who knows when the leader of the Yuntian Tower will come out of seclusion? Besides, if he comes out of seclusion, what will happen if he protects Jianghu even more? Liang Xiaoxiao was silent for a while before she said, strange. In the end, Jianghu is just a subordinate of the Yuntian Tower. How did she get to such a position? I heard that the leader of the Yuntian Tower doted on her since she was very young and specially brought her to the Yuntian Tower to raise her. If not for that, she would not have been so successful. Liang Yi shook his head. I'm afraid only they know the answer to this mystery. Then father, what should we do next? We can't just let her go like this, right? Liang Xiaoxiao would never be willing to do this. Liang Yi pondered for a long time. Send someone to investigate first and see if we can find any evidence. Also, many people have been investigating Chuyu recently. What do you know about him? Chuyu? Isn't he on good terms with Rongxiu? But I don't know anything else. Although Chuyu's name had been very famous in the academy during this period of time, his background was indeed a mystery. It seems that Rongxiu wants to protect him. However, I heard that Chuyu broke through from the 8th stage to the 9th stage in just a few days in the northern part of the Great Desolate Land and was even taken away by a group of mysterious people. You should know that quite a number of aristocratic families have suffered losses in that place this time. How could they be satisfied if they couldn't get the heavenly square cauldron? Perhaps in the end this trouble would still fall on Chuyu's head. Liang Yi pondered for a long time. Go back to the academy first and see what's going on with Chuyu. I'll go ask the other aristocratic families and see what they plan to do. Maybe we can find some clues related to Shao Kong from them. Although Liang Xiaoxiao wanted to deal with Jianghu immediately, she knew that with the Yuntian Tower's help, this was not something that could be solved in a day or two. For now she could only plan for the long term. Okay. Lingxiao College. Donghuang Clock Tower. Elder Bo Yen was sitting alone in the room with a thick book in his hand. Ever since the dean left, the school's name list had been kept by him. On it, the names of every elder and student in Lingxiao College for 10,000 years were recorded. Of course, there were also the previous deans. He stared at the totem on the book for a long time before he finally took a deep breath and chose to open it. On the title page, the names of every dean were recorded. His eyes swept across the book one by one and finally stopped at the top. There was no name, only a piece of purple scale armor. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. And it was also after that, it was unknown what Chuyu did, but he sealed the barrier, making it impossible for others to enter. These were all facts that could not be changed no matter what. For them to push the blame onto Chuyu, it seemed like it wasn't completely without basis. Otherwise, they would not have joined forces and forced their way to the entrance of Lingxiao College. Elder Bo Yen frowned. He hadn't seen these things with his own eyes, but he had heard Elder Hua Feng mention it before. At that time he vaguely felt that something was wrong. Now, trouble had indeed come. I'll meet them personally. Fong State City. The streets that used to be bustling with noise and excitement were now empty and silent. Only the area connected to the Spirit Firmament Academy's enchantment was covered in darkness. Everyone in the city heard the news and went back to hide carefully. They were afraid that this storm would affect them. There were only a few dozen people standing here, but the forces behind them were all first-rate families and clans in the Divine Ruins world. With a casual stomp of their feet, they could shake the entire divine ruins world. Ordinary people naturally couldn't dodge in time. But in their hearts they also had doubts. They didn't know what had happened to make these people choose to join forces and challenge Lingxiao College. This was the first time in 100 years. Everyone stood in one place, each of them silent. The atmosphere was oppressive and the air was condensed. It was almost suffocating. Not far away, the elders in charge of guarding the barrier also had solemn expressions. The confrontation between the two sides was about to break out. When Elder Bo Yen rushed over, this was the scene he saw. Even though his heart was burning with anger, he had no choice but to suppress it at this moment. He took a deep breath and was about to walk out of the barrier. Bo Yen, Elder Wen Shi and the others hesitated and called out to him. They didn't come with good intentions. It would be dangerous to go out rashly. Elder Bo Yen gave them a reassuring look. These people just wanted to use this formation to force them to hand over Chuyu. They didn't really want to completely fall out with Lingxiao College. Now that he represented the entire school, they didn't dare to do anything to him. After comforting them, Elder Bo Yen stepped out of the barrier. He stood in front of the barrier, cupped his hands at everyone and said with a smile, "You all came from afar, why didn't you greet us in advance? What if we neglect you?" As he spoke, he had already quietly swept his gaze across the faces of these people. Most of them were familiar faces. Many of them had personal grudges against each other. And now they were all standing on the same side to force them to hand over Chuyu. How laughable. Elder Bo Yen were all old acquaintances. Let's not beat around the bush. A middle-aged man spoke. I believe you already know why we're here today. It's up to you whether you want to let him go or not. Elder Bo Yen laughed, but there was no trace of a smile in his eyes. Since that's the case, I won't say any more nonsense. But if you want my Lingxiao College to hand him over, you must have a reason, right? Reason? Elder Bo Yen, you should know this reason too, right? Do you dare to say that Chuyu really has no problems with the matter of the primordial north? Another younger man raised his voice and spoke with a hint of viciousness in his eyes. So many people died and only Chuyu benefited a lot. Moreover, it's obvious that he has something to do with the canyon. You'd better let him come out and explain it to us personally. Elder Bo Yen frowned slightly and took another look at the young man. With so many people working together, their strength was strong. Even these people started to set up the height of heaven and depth of earth. Chuyu is a student of my Lingxiao College. If he really did something wrong, we won't let him off. But if someone wants to slander and bully him, we won't agree either. Elder Bo Yan's voice wasn't loud, but his words were sonorous. His words were naturally filled with a tyrannical aura. The scene immediately became much quieter. Then he stroked his beard and said slowly, "Moreover, you all came at a bad time. He was just locked up in Mount Pengmin. I'm afraid he won't be able to come out in the short term. Digression, I'll go have a meal first and continue at 6 in the afternoon. I've been running outside every day for the past 2 days and slept for 4 to 5 hours a day. I was so muddled that I thought it was my last day. Yesterday, I couldn't hold on any longer and took medicine to force myself to sleep early. When I woke up, I felt much better. Today is also the day I'm going to add more chapters. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.